Good morning, F1 fans. Formula One is back for 2020, and so are the F1 Word testing streams. How are we all doing in chat? It's been a long time, 1st of December, the last time I streamed, so I hope everyone's all right today. Good to see the mods here as well. Annette up in the middle of the night in Australia. You crackers, but we love it. I don't think it's the middle of the night just yet in Australia, Sean. Come on, wake up. Hope you're all doing really, really well. We're going to go through all the usual disclaimers and whatnot before we get going with the obvious one. Say it with me, chat. Of course, no on-track footage in this stream. Think of it as radio commentary while you work or you're at school. It's essentially whilst you should be doing better things. Come and listen to me as some guests over the course of the next 2 weeks. I've got Chamber with me this morning. He'll be with me very, very shortly. But first of all, I've been looking forward to doing this, honestly. So like I say, no track footage. We will have the live timing, courtesy once again of gptoday.net. So thank you very much to the guys and gals over there, especially Fergal, and been great sorting this all out with you, mate. So thank you very much again. They will also be providing all the images in this stream. So in theory, there shouldn't be any copyright strike issues. However, FOM do not like people streaming during testing. So if the stream suddenly goes dead, make sure you tweet at F1 and let them know what's going on with your displeasure and whatnot. But yes, it's still going to happen, isn't it? You can also follow me on social media. Links in the description down below. If you want to get involved over on social media, you can do with hashtag F1 Word Testing or F1W Testing, and I'll keep an eye on that as well. And you can see on screen once again, we've got another donation counter. Last year, you guys helped to set me with a decent PC. So thank you for that one, but as I'm sure you'll all agree, audio is top priority for me at the moment because I don't use Facecam, so I'm looking to get a new mic set up, proper XLR, so you can donate to the stream if you want to. No pressure as always, you don't have to, completely optional, but links down below to PayPal, Super Chat and to Streamlabs. Don't forget as well though, if you do donate via Super Chat on YouTube, get used to this one as well, Google will take 30% of your donation, so I can highly recommend, if you feel like sending some money, to do it through PayPal, but make sure you leave a message if you do send some money on PayPal, because I'd love to give you a shout out, and we will do them throughout the stream. And I will do live timing, rundowns and all sorts every hour on the half hour, and as something significant changes. And this year, as you'll all know, we can watch via TV. Yes, it's actually on TV, so I can actually tell you what's going on track. I'll talk about the Alfa Romeo in just a moment, but should we do our first rundown of 2020? Why not? Currently fastest out on track in Barcelona is Carlos Sainz Jr. 118.423 on the medium. I need to get the tyre key actually from Fergal. I forgot to do that, so apologies. Sergio Perez second at the moment, 119.4, 19.6 for Leclerc, who is in for Vettel, who's not very well this morning. He was supposed to be running, but he's not going to be now, so Charles Leclerc is in all day. Max Verstappen 120.386 there on the hard tyre, so is Leclerc. Perez on the soft, by the way, by the look of that. Bottas 121.6. And this is why, by the way, for anybody wondering, I go live half an hour after testing starts, because it's a lot of reconnaissance laps early on. So yet to set a time, George Russell. By the way, that Williams looks gorgeous out on track. Very impressed with that. Kubica, who is in for Alfa Romeo. Any Polish fans in? I'm sure you're very happy with that one. Esteban Ocon, he's back this year. Of course, he's yet to set a time, but he's done a couple of laps. Kvyat in 9th, Magnussen 10th, Latifi is 11th. Lewis Hamilton will be in the car this afternoon, and Sebastian Vettel, as I say, isn't running. So just your top 10 you need to focus on there. And just to let you know, for anybody wondering, it is driver name, as you can see, lap time, then their lap count. So already Sainz has done 11 laps, then the tyre that they're on, and their current status, whether they're on track or in the pit lane. I don't know how I rushed through that. I've got 3.5 hours to fill this morning. We'll be live again this afternoon. Don't forget, I've got F1/E review, Danny Boy will be with me this afternoon. But this morning, I'm just going to hop straight into waiting. It'll be the easiest way to do it. I'm joined by Chamber. Good morning, Stuart. F1's back. I can hear me in the background. Is Stuart there?
I don't know if you can hear me, but I can't hear you.
This is
good start.
This is the brilliant stuff. Okay, this is why I love.
I got you.
This is why I love testing, Stuart. I was talking to Mike yesterday at F1 Fanatics, and I put it on push to talk. Guess what? I forgot to turn off. Should we just start again? Let's. Joining me this morning, it's Chamber, or as he prefers to be known, I'm sure, Stuart. Good morning, Stuart. F1 is back.
Good morning, Sean. It is good to be back. We're seeing cars on track, doing actual laps, not just on intermediate tyres for media days. It's very exciting.
It is proper stuff, and to watch it as well. Last year we got a few hours, didn't we?
And all 10 of them.
Yes.
Everybody has made it to day one.
Yeah, I was just going to say actually the big boost this year is that Williams have actually realised it's testing and bothered to turn up. So massive step in the right direction. That car looks great on track though. That livery.
It does. It looks. I kind of suspected it would be some variation on the road kit livery that they stuck on the Venturi car in Formula E, which was a lot cleaner than that weird shaded effort that Williams did last year. So yeah, much nicer than they did last year. And the car, actually, I'm sure it's all in the livery, but the car actually looks a lot nicer than it did last year as well.
Yeah, I love doing these streams. They're so much fun. But Mitch Golding in chat, it's too early for that, mate. F1 returning tickles my prostate.
Oh, God. Well,
and on that note, we'll see you next week.
Amazing.
We've had a couple of car launches this morning, actually worth talking about. Definitely, we've had the second Alpha. It's not really confusing, is it? Dave launched this morning. Haas have revealed their car. I'm going to go actually very quickly. I know we want live time. But very quickly, just go to some full images of the new Alpha. Again, I'm not technically minded. I'm sick of saying that, but I'm not. But I think it's just a nice variation on last year's livery. They've got is it Orlan sponsor on there? So, yeah. I mean, to be honest with you, I liked the Alfa Romeo livery, so I didn't really need to change. So I'm quite happy with that. But a few renders released this morning.
Yeah, it looks. I mean, it's always looked very handsome since since Alfa took over the branding of that car. And also good to see some title sponsors on a smaller team. So yeah, I think what we're seeing, and I'm not the best at noticing the finer details of body shapes unless they're really obvious from year to year. But it does seem that a lot of cars we're just seeing a slight evolution from 2019, which, I think it's going to be expected. We're at the sort of the end of a development cycle of one set of rules, and people are starting to put their energies into these massive changes we're going to see next year. So I think, people aren't taking the water off the boil for 2020 by any means, but I really think we're not going to see any massive leaps in development. I could be wrong. We could see something really bizarre come out some point this year, but I think, we're not going to see any major surprises.
No, I want to talk about Williams a little bit later because I've got a question I want to put to people in chat and to you as well. So we'll do that later. But I've got a feeling a lot of focus is on 2021 for these midfield teams next year. I don't think anybody's going to write it off. I can't see anyone doing that, but I think they've got to put focus on it. But I think that's a good-looking Alpha Romeo. Oh, for God's sake. Should we just call them Romeo and Tori? Or Tauri? How are you pronouncing it? David Coulthard doesn't even know, so...
I was going with Tori, but I guess we'll see what the consensus is.
But well, I thought, my understanding was that Alpha Tauri were named Tori after the Taurus constellation.
Yeah, that's my understanding. So, and I think it's an easier leap going from Toro Rosso to Alpha Tauri. Although I thought Boris Johnson was the Alpha Tauri.
Oh dear.
We started.
Morning, everyone.
Hello.
Yes.
Just making sure you're all awake.
Oh, Boris. Let's gloss over that one quickly and move on.
Williams is out on track now with a rake about twice the size, not a rake, but like one of those aero fences, about twice the width of the car right now. So clearly they mean business.
I was just going to ask if we'd seen a Renault on track. There is a Renault on track, Esteban Ocon out there, all in black, but the pictures, the black and white pictures they shared appeared to show lighter areas on the car, so I assume they're going back to yellow, but they did say before launch that they would be showing off the car in its testing livery. So this must be it.
Yeah, it's been out. It does definitely look a different shape than it has done, but yeah, still in that the same colours that they sort of glimpsed in those weird renders they showed at the launch. In fact, I think it's on screen right now. Very skinny nose.
Yeah.
I do hope they, stick to the yellow because I think yellow is the Renault colour. It'd be weird to have a car that's out there in all black for a Renault, but whatever they want to be doing.
Yeah, it looks nice in black, but you want your cars to stand out, don't you? So a little bit easier to spot when you're watching them. But good to see Ocon back. I will say that will not go down well with the Dutch fans. But good to see Ocon back. But yeah, that nose is really skinny. It's kind of somewhere between the McLaren nose and the Mercedes nose, isn't it? Really quite. And I don't like the way they've squeezed a number on it either. It looks a little bit like they've panicked and gone, we need to get the number on quick.
There's not quite enough space for that 31. I mean, Great radio. I think they should have moved that number a bit further down because it's sort of half on the lip of the of where it widens out and half on the sort of skinny bit, so it's all a bit stretched out.
Maybe it'll look better come Australia for the proper livery. I mean, this could be the proper livery. They might change their mind if the fans all go, leave it black. The teams will listen because they all listen to us, you know.
Well, I've got a very unglamorous conspiracy theory that this is the color Renault always wanted to run with, because this is the sort of delivery that they launched with when they returned to F1 after being Lotus for a couple of years, and everyone went a bit ballistic about it because they're expecting a sexy yellow livery. So then they turned it to all yellow, and every year since they've slowly been making it more and more black, and hoping we won't notice.
Riley C in chat says Alpha Tauri, or Tauri, are indeed named after Taurus. Taurus is the bull constellation, and Alpha Tauri is the brightest star of the Taurus constellation. So there we go. I have a feeling this is a debate we're going to be having for probably 20 of the 21 races this year, Stu. I've just got that feeling.
Hopefully everyone will just settle into one. Once people start commentating and having interviews and stuff, it'll just settle. We'll all decide what it is together. I think it's going to be Tory. I think it's very annoying there are two alphas, but you know, they've got a clothing brand to sell, so who am I to complain? And let's be honest, it's nice to see some new colours on the grid.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I love that livery. And I enjoyed the launch as well, but I'm kind of like, people didn't agree. They were like, oh, you know, just show us the car. But been watching F1 since '92, so they used to launch cars with the Spice Girls and Jamiroquai and that kind of thing. It was a big deal. So to see Ferrari bring the circus and an orchestra and a random woman sniffing and coughing, that was awesome. I loved that stream. And then you've got AlphaTauri have got a fashion show which, you know, people were sort of laughing at and taking the mick out of, but at least you sort of interact on social media, have a bit of fun. It helps them to promote their launch, and you can poke a bit of fun at it, but it's nice to see effort rather than, you know, 4 renders of a black car that's not even going to look like that. Do you know what I mean? So I don't know. I quite like the simplicity of the Williams launch. Release a video, sound on, the engine in the background, a quick pan across it. Really, really nice. But I do like to see a bit of effort in these launches. But that's just me being an old man.
I mean, I'm going to be honest. I did not live watch any of the launches because I did a lot of that last year, and I got a bit tired of it because, excuse me, 90% of launch events are old men in suits talking about sponsors and everyone waiting to see the car. So this year I kind of just waited to see the pictures come out after the launch, especially the studio pictures, because normally we watch launches, we're all sitting there waiting for the car, and then the car comes out in like the worst lighting ever. And you're like, I want to see the car, I want to see what so I sort of waited for the liveries, but I actually found myself a bit jealous that I didn't watch the Ferrari one because it sounded absolutely bonkers and delightful. And I think one thing we've learned from these launches is that you're not going to please everyone. People either want to see the car or they want to see an effort, or, you know. So do what you like, I guess. But I do prefer not having to listen to people from the boardroom talking about their exciting sponsors with a milk company and how milk is in a synergy with the fast-paced F1 mindset or something. That's not very exciting.
Oh, William's story is milk float again. No, I mean, I tell you what, Racing Point's launch was one of the most boring things I've ever watched in my life. And I watch EastEnders. Do you know what I mean? It was so dull. And, you know, Otmar Safenauer took a cheeky dig at Grosjean, which was probably the highlight. Lance Stroll and Sergio Perez, I'm not entirely convinced wanted to be dressed in those race suits, let alone be pulling the covers off a pink car, which looks like a strawberry milkshake. Yeah, it was... I mean, we waffle, but we're not launching a car. We're just here chilling and talking nonsense about F1. But yeah, oh my God, it was so boring.
On the plus side, it's the last Racing Point launch.
That's true, yeah. Alpha. Oh, I wonder if they'll do it. Not Alpha Martin. Sure. Oh, we don't need another one. Aston Martin next year. I wonder if they'll put a bit of effort in. Maybe go British Racing Green as well. Although I do like the pink. I poke fun at it, but I do like the pink because it stands out. You're never going to miss it, are you? So
I'm wondering about this. Do 12 months in advance now comes the livery speculation, because you could have the Racing Green. You could have that kind of lime green they use in their other racing efforts, and you've still got the iconic pink from the BWT. Will they do a very ugly mashup of all three colors? Probably.
Yeah.
we
No.
we know what it's like when designers are barged in by PR. We want all the colors. Everybody wants green and pink and racing green. Just stick them all on there. It'll be fine.
Mitch Golding in chat just saying, stream could do with more likes, lads. So yes, please do drop a like on the stream. That'd be massively appreciated. I will go through the order on the hour, on the half hour, and as significant things change. At the moment, we still have Russell, Kubica, Magnussen yet to set a time. Ricardo isn't out till this afternoon. Stroll isn't out till this afternoon. Raikkonen, I think he's out this morning. I'm waiting for it to scroll across on the bottom of the screen here, so I'm going to try and, No, it's Kubica this morning. Robert Kubica in the car. Yes, I forgot about Bobbert.
Yeah.
Oh, fantastic! That's. I wonder if we get any more running.
I'm actually amazed they stuck him in the car instead of. I'm assuming instead of, but Raikkonen's not running today, and you think they want to maximize their old head time during the 6 days of testing they have? Just 6 days.
I know.
I was looking this up. 10 years ago, 18 days of testing, and they could run both cars.
Yeah, and you had a lot of time between, didn't you? You had the 3-4 months in between the end of the season finishing and the start of the season, and then you'd also have in-season testing as well. So the pre-season tests weren't even that important, whereas now these are hugely significant. So I think we're going to see quite a lot of track, and I'm going to use this in air quotes, action. It's not really action, but I think we're going to see a lot of stuff on track this week, certainly, and definitely next week. Like you said at the start, I'm glad to see 10 teams there. I think it's great to see Williams arrive on time, but I think surely, that's just learning your lessons from last year, isn't it? Surely they've sat down and gone, right, why were we late last year? Let's make sure that we put all the work in December and January and all of that, and then, you'd like to think. I hope things are better for Williams this year. I don't think they're going to be jumping up to 9th, 8th in the championship, but if they can just be fighting with whichever team is 9th, get a few more points on the board. I think George Russell, I'd love to see him pick up points. I think, deserved points last year. I think if you listen to everybody who knows about the data and that on the car, he did a great job. Wiped the floor with Kubica in qualifying. Obviously lost because of the point in Germany, but I think it'd be great to see him score points. And I hope Latifi does well as well. I really do, because I'm a little bit sceptical on Nicholas Latifi. He's a good guy. He's been good in F2, but I can't help but feel he's predominantly there because he brings a big fat check. But I'd love him to go out there and prove us all completely wrong.
Yeah, me too. I'm definitely a big fan of making sure all 20 F1 drivers are good, solid, exciting drivers. I know we can't always have that. Again, with Latifi, I think if the Williams is sort of around where it was last year, the problem we had with Russell was we knew he was a good driver, but we weren't entirely sure how well he was doing last year because we couldn't really compare him to the cars around him. And Robert Kubica was not quite a solid data point because he was coming back from injury, because he'd been away for so long. We weren't entirely sure where he was either. So to be able to compare them to each other, even though Russell did basically obliterate Kubica in qualifying and the race, despite that point, it was very hard to get a read on him. So actually, I think Latifi versus Russell, we're going to be able to have much more of a reasonable comparison and be able to say something about them, even if the Williams car remains off the pace, which I hope it's not. And I think the one benefit Williams had last year is they knew they were going to be 10th and there wasn't going to be anything they could do about it. So they could actually start on 2020 as early as they wanted, which is probably, why they're able to make it to day one testing pretty confidently. They weren't panicking at the last minute. They were probably solidly on this program well into last year. And on that subject of, this year, next year, while everything's a big change for 2021, you're saying, the midfield are going to start focusing next year as early as possible. Every position in the Constructors' Championship is worth quite a lot of money. So they can't afford to completely lose focus on 2020. So there's still lots to watch.
Absolutely. I'm Yeah. I don't know. I feel weird about this year. I don't know about anybody else. It feels like, and I guess it is, a transitional year. That's what it feels like to me. I don't feel like, how can I word this? I feel like I'm waiting for next season. How bad is that? We've not even got to Australia and I'm waiting for 2021. So, yeah.
I think we can't. There's definitely can't write this year off because
No.
I think. So as seasons progress, we have this sort of opening act, which are the flyaway races before we sort of come back, and that sort of sets the scene for what the rest of the year will look like. We'll know who our main championship challengers will be. We'll sort of know who's going to be the top end of the midfield, and even with the midfield, you're not entirely sure because people who look strong in early races may lose those positions as development marches on. But I think once we start coming back to Spain and Monaco again, we'll sort of, fourth or fifth teams like, McLaren, Renault, maybe Haas. We're not really sure. Again, the midfield is very hard to predict. They may find themselves wanting to put more effort in because maybe they think they can snatch a podium. Maybe they think they can get fourth in the championship and it's worth focusing on 2020 for longer. And then we may see teams like AlphaTauri, Alfa Romeo, and especially Williams sort of saying, okay, well, 2020 is fixed, it's in the bag, we'll do what we can, and we're going to focus everything on 2021. But, the more is that's at stake, I think the more exciting we're going to see teams push. And as I've said every year for the past few years, I think I'm really hoping someone sort of break into that top three a little bit more, have a regular chance of getting on the podium. Wins are tricky, but, we saw McLaren and Toro Rosso on the podium last year. Who else can get up there?
Well, in theory, it should be closer this year, shouldn't it? In theory, because there's been no major regulation change. I think the biggest change is the shark fin has to be a bit bigger to fit the number on. And I can't see anybody really taking advantage of that to the point where they find a second a lap. You never know, though. But I think it should be closer this year. I think you're going to have your top three are going to converge. And I think that McLaren and Renault, if they are top of the midfield, will close in as well. But I'm with you. I'd like to see... I think you're still going to need a bit of chaos to get a McLaren or a Renault or a Racing Point on a podium. But I'd like to see them not need quite as much chaos as, say, Brazil, for example. Just a little bit of madness, because then at least it's going to be close. Because my concern for next year is because of the way they've handled the cost cap, what we're going to get is the top three teams are going to spend an absolute fortune this year. And then the gap between the top three and the midfield is going to be bigger next year, and it's going to take a couple of years for that to come down. That's my biggest concern for 21. I think the cost cap should have come in for this year.
Yeah, I agree. That's a really good point because setting yourself up for the next generation of regulations is going to be really important because then you could just ride and develop on that. If you spend an absolute... Sorry, I'm just looking at the Force India and it's got these weird Mickey Mouse ears sticking on the side, which I assume are sensors, but we'll get back to that later. Oh, maybe they're cameras. Anyway, yeah, you could spend a fortune getting a good baseline for these new set of regulations. Then you could just work on that, which is what Mercedes kind of did in 2014. They stole an absolute march on everybody, and that gap closed up a little bit, but never enough to break their dominance. Yeah, whereas if you had a cost cap, as you say, for these new set of regulations, then everybody would be going in trying to do the best they could with the $200 million dollars or euros or whatever.
Yeah.
Development. Yeah, I think you're right. So I think, yeah, and then what happens is, of course, say, I don't know, Ferrari are the dominant team, and you've got these midfield teams that are sort of roughly where they are now. They're not able to spend the money to make up the gap to how far Ferrari have disappeared up the road. That's the concern, which I see is your thoughts similarly.
Anybody asking, by the way, in chat, if you want to watch the actual on-track footage, Sky F1 in the UK, I think Sky Italy are as well, and otherwise it's F1 TV if it's available where you are. I'm sure there are other ways to watch. I'm not going to go sharing links, but I'm sure there are other ways to watch. But yeah, also pointing out in chat, it's Racing Point, Stuart, not Force India.
Oh, God.
What, in
Well, not
25
for
minutes?
long. Not for long. Well, at least I'm
Actually,
saying Alfa Romeo now.
that Racing Point, we've
Yeah.
not seen it, have we? That's the first time we've seen it proper, because the one they launched on Monday was just delivery on the 2019 show car.
Yeah, I've been looking at pictures of it on Twitter. It's, you know what? Very Mercedes-like.
I thought
Very
that about the nose. It's got that
that big round end.
the big round end. I was trying to avoid talking about Lewis Hamilton's purple helmet. But yes. Anyway, quickly, Sean. Quickly. Do you have a favourite livery, actually, Stuart, so far?
Well, I'm a big fan of what Racing Point have done this year. I quite like the big, bold, BAM BWT livery. I've always liked that pink, but I like that they just sort of just slapped it right across the engine cover. I think that's quite cool. I do really like the AlphaTauri. It's got that really sporty look. It kind of looks like a sort of tracksuit or trainer kind of style coloring. I don't know if that makes any sense to you. That's sort of what I think of it. It's really, it looks very sporty and cool. I mean, we're not seeing many changes in liveries this year. I actually prefer Mercedes livery from last year, though I kind of like that they do a little evolution every year. What are your thoughts on these? Oh, McLaren actually was quite nice.
Yeah, I'm quite a big fan of the McLaren. I know people are sort of saying, "Oh, they've only moved the blue," is what it feels like. But I do like it, and it's nice in a matte finish as well. But I can't look past that AlphaTauri.
No.
I absolutely love it, and I know it's very simple. I'm just trying to find a picture of the Racing Point, but I'll have a look in a minute, because I'll wait for GP today to send them rather than stealing them and getting us trouble. But yeah, I do like the AlphaTauri massively, and I love the Williams as well, but there's not a lot of change. You've got the red, burgundy, cherry, candy apple, whatever it is on the Mercedes. A Ferrari's just red in it. You know, what can you say about that? Red Bull, I like the Red Bull. I like the Red Bull livery, like the Mercedes livery, like the Ferrari livery, but nothing's changed. Whereas at least Williams, AlphaTauri, and even I suppose to Point Racing Point have mixed it up a little bit. So I think I just can't not look at that AlphaTauri. I'm sorry, everybody. I know it's a bit of the cliche answer now with liveries, but I think it's absolutely fantastic, and it has got a retro vibe to it. Is one way. I don't know why. I don't know what it is. But I was expecting black and chrome. All the teasers were saying black and chrome, and they've gone white and navy blue.
Which is actually, it works really, really well. And I don't think anyone was disappointed, and I think everyone was really looking forward to some kind of black and chrome livery, and to come out with that, and everyone still be really excited and think it was really sexy is good job them. I'm looking forward to see it. I'm not completely won over on the accompanying race suits, but I don't know why. I think they're maybe just a little bit boring.
Really?
I mean, they're all right. They're just kind of white, aren't they?
I like them. I think they look. I mean, simple like me. It's probably what I go with. I really like them. Yeah, I think they don't need to be over the top, if that makes sense. But
yeah. I've liked in sort of recent years. Well, I say this. I'm looking at as I speak. Someone has tweeted us a picture of all the race drivers walking in unison. So I'm looking at all the race suits right now. We did go through a period where everyone was wearing all white race suit, apart from Ferrari and Red Bull. So it's really nice seeing some variation, but there are still an awful lot of white out there, which is quite. It's nice that we have sort of suits that sort of a bit of a complement to the car. Like McLaren have their blue while the car is orange, and so on.
I tell you something actually on liveries and race suits. Actually, I'm just scanning through this picture now. That whoever's put that red at the top of the Red Bull suit, I don't know what they were thinking. That red stripe.
Where the buttons would be if it was a polo shirt.
I just don't like that at all. But what I will say is I am surprised how pleased I am to see the old Haas livery back.
Yes.
I didn't like I didn't think the black and gold was executed well at all. And I just think they look like Haas again.
I mean, I think a lot of people thought the Haas livery was a little bit boring, but I quite like it because it's clean, it's bold. Those are the colours I think of when I think of Haas. They did this weird. I didn't like that weird livery they did once, where it was it looked like it was grey, but it was like the grey colour of plastic of like model kits before you painted them.
Yeah.
That was horrible. But apart from that, yeah, I really like their colours, and I'm quite happy to see them back. Not just because the black and gold was associated with calamity of a sponsor.
I was just gonna say bitch energy, but yeah, no, I agree. I really if I go quiet or I am paying attention. I'm a man. I'm dangerous cliches here. But I'm trying to put new pictures in the stream whilst I talk, and multitasking and Sean do not go well together.
That's fine. Yeah, I know you're concentrating on more things than I am.
But yeah, definitely. I mean, I looked at that picture of the race suits as well. The Alpha race suits look great. I mean, let me know in chat if you've got a favourite livery or race suit or anything like that. I'm just trying to put these pictures in of the Renault and the Watchamy-Jigs Racing Point Watchamy-Jigs. There you go. That's better than. I tell you what, I know we've already kind of touched on them. I can't wait to see that name go. That is such a rubbish name for a team. It's just so unimaginative. And I just really wish. There we go. They should be in now. There we go. Yeah. I just can't wait to see that name disappear. It's so pants. It feels like a placeholder.
Weird default name. It was a placeholder, and then they were like, "Oh, we're kind of
stuck with it now."
I tell you something I have noticed and I think this was sort of what was expected. But if you ever see that picture of them all those drivers standing, walking en masse up the track, the Racing Point and AlphaTauri helmets are now back to like driver colors, because they were displayed as like sponsor colored, and everyone was freaking out, including me, because I don't like that. I don't like when they are forced to have sponsor colored helmets. So yeah, having said that, they do look very similar. If you look at those AlphaTauri helmets, they look very similar. Sorry?
2 minutes past 9. I'll quickly fly through this order.
Good idea.
Not much going on really out there, but it's nice to see cars on track. That's Valtteri Bottas looking at the moment. But Carlos Sainz still fastest. Oh, is that a sign for McLaren? No. 1:18.423, 17 laps on the board. That was on the A version of the medium tyre. I'll try and get that key off Fergal in the lunch break to find out what colour is what, because I know all 5 compounds are there. So Sergio Perez 1:18.8, 12 laps on the board. He's in the pits. Esteban Ocon 1:19.618, 14 laps. He's in the pits as well. That was on a harder compound. So the 5, I'd imagine, for the 1, sorry. Probably for that one. Leclerc 1:19.6, 14 laps for him. Verstappen 1:19.798, 21 laps on the board. And Kevin Magnussen 1:19.8, 10 laps on the board. They are all in the pits. Your top 6. Kubica, who is running this morning, 1:21.2, 9 laps so far for Alfa Romeo. Valtteri Bottas 1:21.6. Oh, it's not looking good for Mercedes. Them sandbags holding them back. 17 laps on the board. Daniel Kvyat's done 8 laps, 1:50.3, and George Russell hasn't set a time, but he has completed 12 laps for Williams. Stroll, Ricciardo, Raikkonen, Hamilton, I believe that's it in the car this afternoon. So they are your top. It's a top 10 you need to focus on this morning. And don't forget, I'll be live again this afternoon with Danny Boy from F1/E Reviews from 1:30.
Yeah, Williams, of course, still sort of coming in and out of the garage with that massive aero rake thing attached to their car. So yeah, not doing any sort of full laps yet. Just a bit of context. Day 1 last year, by the end of the morning, the best time was a 1:18.2 by Vettel, and he did 72 laps by lunchtime. So
yeah,
kind of hard to compare year on year, but we're sort of looking kind of around. That looks similar to where we'll end up. And again, day 1, very, very not about setting a time, is it? It's about getting laps down on track, about understanding the car. But some people might throw in a fast lap.
I was pretty close-ish with this last year, but I think what you'll get steady pace today and tomorrow, and probably Friday morning, and then with an hour or so to go, you'll get a couple of hot laps on the Friday to grab the headlines for the weekend, and then it'll be the same again next week, and then I think Mercedes will rock up Friday afternoon and we'll all go, oh, great. There's still nothing against Mercedes, but I think we all like a bit of variety at the front. A couple of super chats, actually, very quickly. Thank you to Andrew. 12:30 a.m. in Washington State right now. Don't know why I'm awake. It's because we're here. We're here to keep you company. Thank you very much for your contribution. And Andras says, naming conventions. Is Alfa Romeo... If Alfa Romeo will be called Alpha and the Alpha Tauri will be Tauri, also ding every time Sean calls Alpha Tauri Toro Rosso. That's a lot of dinging. What's a ding? I assume sound effect. Ding.
Ding, yeah.
But yeah, thank you very much for your contributions. Massively appreciate it. Got a couple over on the old PayPal as well. Tristan, I recognise that name. I'm not going to try, but I'm going to do first names only. And Andre as well, thank you very much for your contributions over on PayPal. I'll log in and see if you've left me a message. If you do donate via PayPal, please do put a message, even if it's just to say hello. That's absolutely fine. It's just an opportunity to shout you out. But thank you very much for your contributions over on the old Pay of the Pal. I got a hashtag going this year, Stuart. I'm totally down with the kids. Yeah, so I'm kind of keeping an eye on that. But I don't know if people are getting me mixed up with actual F1 testing.
Well, you're F1W testing.
Yes, I am. I've just stuck a W in there because I'm that exciting. Thursday says, I'm getting catering 2014 nose vibes from that new Renault nose. Don't really love it, but oh well, who am I? You're Thursday. But
it's not that bad.
It's not, yeah, I mean, it's thin.
Unlike the Racing Point, which is bulbous. Much like the Mercedes as well.
F1 Chap, at F1 Chap on Twitter, can we discuss how the Racing Point is exactly like last year's Mercedes, side pods and everything?
Yeah,
you kind of pointed that on the nose, didn't you?
The nose is the most obvious thing to spot. I'm just looking at a side-by-side. Craig Scarborough's retweeted on Twitter. He's put a sort of very similar angles. I mean, you can't deny there's a lot of similarities, but the cars are sort of converging anyway. But something I think that is interesting that I've sort of noticed so do you remember last year? Last year we had a sort of a revision on some of the technical regulations that were supposed to make it easier to overtake. I can't say that it was particularly noticeable, but one of them was the simplified front wings.
Yeah.
And half the teams came out with this sort of idea of having these tapered front wings. So you're the most, the biggest part of the sort of front wing flaps were in the middle, and then they sort of taper down to a point where they met the end plates. And some teams sort of tried to sort of copy that, but obviously the front wing design kind of cascades down the rest of the car, so you can't really change that mid-season because the rest of your car is designed around how your front wing is designed. This year, we're seeing a lot more of these tapered front wings. So clearly it was a good idea, and people have explored it in the wind tunnel and thought, okay, let's explore this. Mercedes haven't. Mercedes have stuck with a big fat front wing, and so have Racing Point. I haven't checked all the cars, but yeah, those two teams have very much stuck with tradition on this one, whereas we got McLaren and Renault and quite a lot of other cars sticking with these kind of pointy tapered front wings. There you go. Technical analysis live.
It's about as good as mine. I love it better than mine, to be fair. I did actually get an email the other day from Brian Doyle, so apologies for not replying. Just everything at the minute in my emails is going in my spam box, so I've given up trying. I probably should remove the email address, but said that the rumour, while we haven't seen the new Racing Point car, is because they have bought a 2-year-old Mercedes chassis and the aero. He does say he could be wrong now. I don't know, of course. The way F1 works, they get away with doing all sorts. I think it's completely illegal to buy a car second-hand, effectively, from like Autocar or something. But I can imagine emails trading hands, sort of going, if you do this like this, we'll knock a little bit more off your engine, and if we do this, can we have that? And I can see them working together, but I don't think they get away with buying an old chassis. The FIA can be quite incompetent at times, but I wouldn't have thought.
And even if you did, you'd have to make enough changes that the FIA wouldn't notice. But yeah, I think ugh. I mean, we saw this with the Haas a couple of years ago when they rocked up with what looked like last year's Ferrari car. There's clearly some sharing of information. Yeah, possibly like you say, to do with commercial arrangements and stuff. But um, yeah, I agree with you. It's definitely not going to be some like wholesale buyout of a chassis unless they bought it just to look at it and sort of nick all the ideas from it. But they're not definitely can't turn up and race with it.
Sorry. I'm scrolling through the hashtag F1 word testing, and we've got people obviously getting mixed up and thinking that it's the official thing because I've got some great tweets in here. Yeah. Anyway, people saying, "Oh, it's that time of year again." F1 word testing. Follow it live on the BBC. Thank you very much. Whoops. Yeah. Absolutely. Never mind. It doesn't matter. It's fine. I just get a bit more interaction. I could talk to you guys a bit more. I'll come to chat as well shortly, and we'll take some questions. But at the moment, Charlie Boy Leclerc, or Leclerc, as Martin Brundle. Is it Martin Brundle calls him Charlie Boy? I bet he loves that. Does old Charles?
I'm sure he does.
He's on the C3. We've got. Sorry, I've just realised we've got proper timing this year as well on the live feed. So it actually all makes sense now. So he's on the C3. So that's cool. I'm just going to watch him come through here. I'd imagine we're not looking at qualifying laps. So there's a lot of time left on the table there for sure as he comes through turn 9. And he's 0.3 slower than Sights. Is this McLaren's year?
Yes, definitely, 100%. Although, like, you can't read too much into the first 70 minutes of testing of the whole year. But it's always encouraging to know you can do fairly quick times and just keep hammering out the laps. They have the second highest number of laps out there, McLaren. They did well last year. They got plenty to build on.
I'm going to do it. I poked fun at it in my video a couple of weeks ago, so the sarcastic look ahead to testing. So I'm going to be the one to do this. Quite the contrast to how things were in the Honda days. It's been 3 years, Sean. Come on. It's true. You think of Zach Brown kind of was talking about the fans that had stood by them when they did the car launch. They sort of stood by them over the years and how easy it would have been for these fans to walk away because they were struggling so much. But they've come on leaps and bounds when you think about it. Quite a long time, 3-4 years. But I think they've got a shot at surprising a few people this year.
I'd really like to hope so. I definitely want to see more cars, particularly McLarens, on the podium, capitalizing on what they did last year. They were stuck in the doldrums with Honda, and in that first year with Renault, they sort of were bouncing back and forth in the lower half of the field. And similarly, you could say for Honda, like Honda are doing great now that they left McLaren behind. It just was a toxic relationship, wasn't it? They found their new dream partners and they're getting on with things. And I think similarly, people who are fans of Honda are pretty happy to see that they're able to get on with things and have been scoring wins and podiums in the last year.
I think we'll talk championship in a bit. I think McLaren could be one of the surprise packages this year, but I'm going to knock on wood. I'm going to knock on my desk because last year I was writing them off. I said they're never going to be where they should be. They're not doing this. They're not doing that. They've come on so far. I think they could. They could be closer to that top 3. I don't think they're going to be regular podium visitors, but it'd be great to see Sainz grab one that he can actually stand on properly. Although I did think about this over the winter a little bit when I watched the Brazilian Grand Prix back, and I did think, it sucks that he wasn't there for the actual ceremony, but it was also kind of nice that after so many difficult years, he got to go up there with the whole team as well.
Yeah, that was a lovely shot.
So it's a shame he didn't get the ceremony, but in some ways, I think he got a better podium. Massive team effort. Lando Norris up there as well. Those two are just so brilliant. I think that's the thing with McLaren as well. They're so likeable at the moment with their driver lineup. And I'm going to say it, and I said it to Jonty the other day. It might surprise a few people in chat. Zach Brown is growing on me. I was not a fan at all, but he's really growing on me. What he's doing for that team, and he's cleared out the deadwood, if you like. He's sorted out all the toxicity behind the scenes, and you've got two drivers who get on, who are doing really, really well on track. You've got a great team boss in now, in Seidel, and I think I'm liking him all of a sudden, or I just find he's a bit more approachable from a press perspective. Not for me, obviously, but sort of you're more likely to see him in a TV interview than perhaps you would have done Ron Dennis. Ron Dennis just liked to crop up and moan, didn't he? More than anything, and just slag Ferrari off. Whereas at least Zach Brown is kind of coming out and opening up. And I think I like the guy, and I'm hoping that rubs off on the whole of McLaren and they continue to grow. Like I said, I think top 3 is a big stretch, but I'd be surprised if they didn't top that midfield again this year.
You know, this may be a bit controversial, and this may annoy a few people. Based on some things I've heard from people who were in the know, I think Fernando Alonso might have been the toxic component in that whole thing. Because the team was sort of centered around him. He didn't have a good working relationship with Honda. I think Zach Brown's entire operation was around keeping Fernando happy. And you took Fernando Alonso out. Honda went as well, sure. But they've been a much more focused team. They've been working together with their partners and with their drivers, and the drivers are younger and scrappier and hungrier too. I just think not centering that team around Fernando Alonso and his ego, and I don't mean that necessarily in a bad way, because obviously all drivers have to have an ego to drive them forward, but has sort of freshened them up a bit and given them sort of a new lease of life. And I think we're seeing that now, and we're seeing Zach Brown able to be more of a positive force and able to be more open and stuff, and not have to sort of focus around keeping his star and happy. And if things are going well and you're building your team and your expectations are sort of set at a more level, I think you can sort of be more reasonable. I trailed off because I saw Charles Leclerc slowing down, but he was just letting a McLaren through.
Do you think,
but I agree with you. Yeah, much more positive and likable team at the moment, especially Zach Brown.
My brain's just died. My brain is just. I was about to say something. I thought it was an excellent point, but it's gone. I mean, it probably wasn't an excellent point. Probably a good job it's disappeared, to be fair. But did you ever get around to watching that documentary on Prime from a few years ago, the McLaren Honda days? Stoff was there, and Stoff, I had to get him in, didn't I? Fernando as well. And there was this whole thing around how they had these expectations and they convinced Fernando Alonso to stay another year and that he was excited and they were promising him the world. And then the car went out and it was crap. The power unit was awful. It was slow. It was clear they were going to be down the back. And they actually had to go to... they didn't show it, but the documentary kind of stopped at a point. I'm kind of paraphrasing, but with Zach Brown that saying, we're going to dinner with Fernando tonight. It's not going to be a comfortable dinner. And they had to convince him to stay that season, allegedly.
Actually, I never saw that documentary in the end. It's one of those things I didn't see at the time and then kept forgetting to see. And I do need to... That's on my list of things to see, as well as the Willie T. What's It Majig documentary. But yeah, I didn't see that, but I did hear the sort of the stories around it, and I think having Alonso there in a way was possibly a big mistake. I think they could have done a lot better in partnership with Honda, having not had him there, and it might have been a similarly tricky first couple of years, but I think they could have built on it in a better way, because I think Honda being a traditional Japanese team with their own sort of business philosophy, I think, do not compute well with people who just publicly smash them into the ground as soon as things go wrong.
No.
That's, and so there sort of was this irreparable relationship that developed. Which, at the time, I thought it was fascinating. They were going to Red Bull, who would publicly berate Renault at any opportunity. I thought that doesn't seem right, but clearly something's worked out well there.
Do you think we'll see Fernando back one day? I don't think we'll see him back at McLaren anytime soon. They've dropped him from his ambassadorial role as well, haven't they? But do you think he'll be back? A lot of talk about 2021 Maybe a return?
Well,
Where does he go?
He's, as far as I'm seeing, the entire Alonso back for 2021 or back at some point hype is all Fernando driven now. It's all him driving that talk. I don't know where he would go, and there's lots of young drivers with a lot of potential moving up through Formula One right now. I don't know. Yeah, clearly he's still got it because he's out there in other series doing good work, and still after that Triple Crown, as far as I'm aware. But as we saw, the relationship he destroyed with Honda got him cut out of a Honda engine in his Indy 500, or in Indy, or got McLaren cut out of that Honda deal with Indy as well.
That was karma, wasn't it? Do you think I've not got a big issue with Fernando. I just think people need to just stop it. He's gone. But that was a little bit of karma. If you're going to spend all your time, it'd be a bit like me criticising Valtteri Bottas last winter and then sitting down for dinner with him. It's not going to happen. Let's put it that way. You can't go slagging off a power unit supplier or a manufacturer for 3 years and then go, please may I drive your Indy car? Because they're going to go, hoo-hoo, no, off you go. It's a little bit of karma.
Yeah, I think so.
Weirdly, I think satisfying as well.
Yeah, and again, I like Alonso in a lot of ways.
I do.
I just think he didn't go around things in the right way, and obviously, of course, he's not. Off the back of that, there have got to be some consequences, which is fair enough. Just looking at it, this is nothing new. I was watching the McLaren drive around behind the Ferrari and noticing just how different some of these noses are, despite how similar the cars have sort of converged. Ferrari has this nice big fat flat nose, which some of the cars do, but McLaren right at the other end of that sort of philosophy with the nose that sort of immediately gets quite skinny, kind of like the Renault is right now. And it's not full Caterham 2014, but it is probably as skinny as it can get.
What I find interesting on the noses this year, and I didn't really pay attention to it last year, but Ferrari, Alfa Romeo, and Haas all have very similar noses, and then you've got Mercedes and not McLaren, Mercedes and Racing Point have very similar noses. And actually, when you look at the McLaren and the Renault, although the Renault has a lot more curve to it, they're very similar. And I don't know if that's just coincidence or whether it is a sign of these teams like Ferrari and Alfa Romeo working together more because they are so similar.
Yeah, that is curious. And again, you'd think, I mean, Renault are just engine suppliers to McLaren, and yet that shouldn't come anywhere near the nose, and yet here we are. Could just be coincidence, but or it could just be, the nose is one of the earliest parts of the car to manage the aero, and the engine packaging is one of the last parts, and they all have to flow together. It is an interesting thing to see. And I mean, to be honest, probably coincidence, but or at least with some of the teams, I can't imagine McLaren and Renault sharing too much data, considering they are basically direct rivals at the moment.
I wonder how much conversation is going on at the moment between Mercedes and McLaren for next year.
That's a good point. That's a very good point.
I can't see Mercedes saying too much. But certainly as the year goes on, I can see maybe, us getting glimpses in the paddock of Zach Brown in the Mercedes hospitality sat down with Toto Wolff having a chat and things like that. So that'll be interesting to see. But the trouble, I suppose, with 2021 being such a big change, no team knows what's going to happen. We can all sit here and say Mercedes, Ferrari, Red Bull be a top three, but we don't know. We didn't expect Brawn to suddenly rock up despite not existing and be top of the field in 2009. Same with Red Bull. So, if Mercedes is suddenly like, Zach, if you do this, mate, your car will be so good, and then McLaren rock up to Australia a second and a half quicker than Mercedes, they're going to look pretty stupid. But I do wonder what conversations go on behind the scenes.
Yeah, and there's an interesting... When you swap engine suppliers, there is this interesting transition period where, so obviously right now there's a team of people from Renault, from the engine supplier Renault, who work with McLaren and go to all their testing and go to the factory and work with them, to make sure they're using the engine and developing it and fitting it in the car properly and so on. And then towards the end of the year, there'll be a sort of transition period. They do sort of stop working with them as much, so they stop getting information essentially, which is a lot easier to do nowadays because obviously they only have it. I know it's divided into lots of different components, but they do only have like 3 engines for the year, so you're only going to get so much development. And then at some point, people from Mercedes are going to start coming in and working with them because they probably not already, but at some point they're going to have to share with them, or maybe already actually, because they are working on 2021 car, because you have to design the packaging around what engine you're going to get, which famously McLaren made that mistake with Honda, whereas they sort of designed the packaging of their car and then the Honda engine didn't fit. I have no idea how they managed to screw that up, but clearly their communication wasn't there early enough. So there's going to be some kind of transition where the Renault guys start to move out and Mercedes guys start to come in and talk to them. I don't know how much information is going to start sort of going back and forth between them, but clearly at some point this year and some point in the not too distant future, there will be some significant talk between them.
It's definitely something to keep an eye on, isn't it? And then it'll be fascinating to compare the 2 cars next year at launches. But I mean, I've said this year I'm not doing launch videos anymore because they're pointless. And then I was like, hang on a minute. I think I messaged you actually, Stuart. I was like, hang on a minute, 2021 next year. I kind of need to. It's actually going to be a big deal next season. But a couple of tweets on F1 we're testing. Agilis, thank you very much, says McLaren feels like a whole different team. It was probably the right way forward for the team. Fernando Alonso was brought in to develop the whole McLaren-Honda partnership. Once Honda went, it was right to let him go. Didn't do a very good job at it, let's be honest. Seemingly unpopular opinion. This is Thursday again. Says Renault nose looks absolutely horrendous. And Kieran says if we wanted to expand the grid to 26 drivers, whilst I think there would be enough teams to invest in this for 2023, do you think there would be enough talent coming through to fill all the spots with enough quality? Wow, that's a very good question. Talent in what have we got in F2 at the moment? I think so. Mick Schumacher, a lot of people are sort of bigging up, but kind of forgetting the likes of Robert Schwartzman, Marcus Armstrong, I think Yuri Vips. I've been watching a lot of him this last year, and actually, because somebody kept saying to me, "Oh, you need to watch Yuri Vips. You need to watch Yuri Vips." I was like, "Oh, watch Yuri Vips." I was like, "Oh, it's pretty good actually." There's some good talent out there, so I think it wouldn't be a problem to fill it, but I think we'd need the cost cap to work. First of all, to entice new teams in, but also if this cost cap is, we're going back now to the days of Lotus as they were when they first arrived, Virgin as they were when they first arrived, and hormone replacement Hispania Racing Team, HRT, when they came in, they were promised the world from Bernie, and then it never happened, and they all ended up having to take paid drivers left, right, and centre, and it all fell apart, and they all disappeared, as I'm sure you know. So you're kind of hoping that this cost cap is going to be properly policed, properly implemented, and teams and manufacturers and whatnot will be happy to join the sport and will feel financially secure enough to join the sport and there's enough in it for them. Otherwise, we'll just end up with another situation where we've got 3 cars, mobile chicanes at the back, or 6 mobile chicanes at the back, and you just end up with a bunch of, with respect, pay drivers. And we don't want that. We want the best talent. You want your Robert Schwartzmans, these young drivers coming through that are going to really, really shine. Your Yuri Vipses and stuff like that. And, I like Lance Stroll, but you don't just want a grid of Lance Strolls.
No. And, Lance Stroll isn't as... he's not bad. He's definitely not as bad as a lot of the pay drivers we used to have. There was a period of time when we had, I think, like you say, particularly around when we had those 3 new teams, a lot of pay drivers on the grid, and it didn't feel right. It didn't feel like Formula One, and definitely the super license tweaks have helped make sure that quality drivers are the ones coming through. I lost the thread. I was definitely going to say something super interesting. I'll come back to what I was going to say. You carry on.
No, yeah. I mean, I think Lance gets a lot of stick. I really, really do. I was just going to say, actually, can we name, how many of those drivers can we name from the
UJED.
Virgin days and whatnot. Charles Peak
Yes.
is a name that I tend to go to.
He was in both Virgin / Manor / whatever the Mauritius and Lotus / Caterham.
He was, yes. He really got around, didn't he?
Yeah.
Narain Carter-Cayan
Yeah.
is one.
UJED was the last person I know who had their super license taken away from them.
Oh, of course, yeah.
I think he flipped someone over in Imola. Remember Imola?
Oh, we're coming to that. Don't you worry.
I know what I was going to say. It's around this cost cap and policing it properly. I read an article. I can't remember. It was this week. I think it was on Race Fans, but I'm not sure. Around Man City's UEFA ban, which I didn't really know much about. I'm not, but essentially that was around them using sneaky accounting to get around sort of cost cap rules and getting banned for 2 years from UEFA competitions. And the article was sort of comparing it to like how FIA have to take the cost cap seriously. Of course, you can't just ban a team from F1 that willy-nilly because there's only 10 teams, whereas UEFA have got, I don't know how many teams, but like tens and tens of teams, then you can ban one quite easily. If you find teams that have sort of tried to circumnavigate the cost cap using clever accounting, what do you think the punishment is? What do they do? What is the right thing to do at that point? Strip them of their points for the year, like they did with McLaren during Spygate?
Well, I don't know if you kind of already touched on this, but the trouble is when they investigate it, because they don't have to submit their accounts until I think the March. So if let's say, let's be really ambitious, Williams win the 2021 title. Oh, delirious already. But let's assume Williams win the 2021 title. I'm just saying that because they're on screen now. George Russell, world champion, fantastic news. And then they submit their accounts to the FIA in March, and it turns out they've broken the rules. How do you then take the championship away from them? Going back to that Manchester City thing, there's some talk that they might take the 2014 or 15 title off them and give it to Liverpool because they broke the rules in that year. So you're going to have to go back and take that title off Williams if that's the punishment. And then you've got to have a whole new... You've already had the championship won. You've then had your FIA ceremony. And I know rules are rules, but surely that's got to be investigated before you can award a championship. Or are they just going to assume that the teams are going to behave themselves? Because I can promise you now they won't. There'll be somebody.
I don't know how rules work in other sports. But as far as I'm aware, like Formula One and possibly all FIA run sports, like the results get kind of ratified and signed off and sealed sort of, I think, by the time of the the award ceremony. And this may need some investigation, but as far as I know, you can't sort of take them back at that point. And one of the things I sort of cite for that is the Nelson Piquet Jr. Renault incident in Singapore, where they sort of got Piquet to deliberately crash so that Alonso could win. And they, that was, absolutely found to be cheating, but they couldn't take that result back because it was already signed, sealed, delivered. And they can't do what they did, for example, in Tour de France, where they basically just erased what's his name, Lance Armstrong, from the records for like 7 years. And I think again, I don't follow Tour de France, but I think there's like 7 years where there just are no winners because the doping was so prevalent they couldn't actually like put someone else as the winner in retrospect. So I don't think they can do that. So unless they change their rules around, how that's sort of managed, I don't know what they can do. And even if they could take championships back, that's not good for the sport either.
No, because where do you stop with that? Do you start taking championships away because a front wing turns out it was, for example, this is still technically speculation, but there was a message in a WhatsApp group going around a while ago of somebody who was working at Benetton back in the 90s, admitting they had
Mhm.
traction control. So do we take that title from Schumacher and Benetton? How far back do you go? That's the next thing. Do we look at things now with the 2020 eye and say, oh, Senna was a bit naughty, wasn't he, at Japan that year? We've got to take that title off him. Oh, no, Senna shouldn't have lost that race in Japan because he cut the chicane, but blah, 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 blah. Now, I don't know. It just opens up a horrible can of worms. Somebody said in chat, I'll try and find your name because it was a reasonable point. I think it was Paul B. I might be wrong, said something about. You can tell I'm scrolling. I can't find it. I think it was Paul B. said, what about fining the team the amount of money that they were over and then distributing that money to the bottom three teams?
Ooh.
That's like double whammy punishment, isn't it?
Yeah.
Which in some ways is kind of like the red card and penalty in football. It's maybe a little bit overkill, but yeah.
But also, if you are Williams in 2021,
World champions.
yeah, would you take that? Would you be like, well, we're gonna like put everything into 2021, we're gonna become world champions, and then we'll take a financial penalty. Yeah.
I suppose that's another argument as well, isn't it? If they know that's the penalty, well, let's break the rules that year, get the title, get a ton of sponsors on the car, and then have a couple of years at the back again, and then do it again.
Yeah.
Ugh.
Because that's essentially just spending more money on winning the championship, right? That's if it's a financial fine, then that's not a disincentive from spending money.
This is what I'm really struggling with the cost cap, and I said this last year a lot, is how they're going to police it. This is the area I'm struggling with the most. Because you've got, as an example, without getting too controversial, what's to say that nice new front wing that AlphaTauri have developed isn't for the Red Bull? Any R&D that's gone into that they've got two teams, they can move the budget around. It looks as though Mercedes and Racing Point are going to, or Aston Martin as they'll be next year, are going to get into bed a bit more with each other. So how do we know where that money's been shared out? And I just think these teams are clever enough to find ways around it, and you're still going to end up with teams like Mercedes, like Ferrari at the front and dominating the sport because, yeah, and I don't know, the cost cap's a weird one as well for me anyway. I've already said about I think it's coming in too late, but also, you say to a team, you can spend £150 million. That's fine. Mercedes will spend every penny of that. Red Bull will. Ferrari will. That doesn't mean Williams might only spend 75 million, half that, because of their budget. So you've still got a huge gulf. I just don't think it's come down low enough.
I think possibly you're right. I think it's definitely a good start.
Yeah,
because you're at least cutting into that kind of massive spending gap that the top teams have over the others. And it's definitely like a sort of place we can reevaluate from going forwards, like with like engine caps. We started with going down to like one engine per weekend, and then it was one engine per two races, and then so on. And now, if you told me 10 years ago we'd be using three engines a year, I'd laugh you out of the room. But yeah, we've managed to get to that point, rightly or some people disagree with that as a thing, but it's a thing that has been made achievable and has probably saved a lot of money. So potentially 10 years time, that cost cap may have been brought down to a sort of more a level that kind of brings everyone more into parity. I think it's definitely good to have a sort of something to start with, because we have no data points at all. We don't know what a cost cap would look like. We don't know how it would play out. We don't know what clever legal accounting would go on even within a team or between teams to give yourself an advantage. But at least now we'll be able to see what the teams will do with the cost cap, and then see how we can play with that and move that. Fingers crossed. But
good
definitely.
Point sorry, Stuart.
No.
I was going to say, good point from Colo84 in chat says, unlike football, F1 has two championships. You can strip the cheating team, but let the driver retain his, and all FIA fines should be redistributed to the bottom three teams where practicable.
Yeah, that's a very good point. And of course, the team's championship is the one where all the money comes from.
Yeah.
And I suppose the thing about being a cheating team is there is a stigma that hangs over you. And for example, it depends on the integrity of your partners. But when Renault were found to be cheating, ING, who was sponsoring at the time, immediately discontinued their partnership. Like they disappeared off the car for the next race as soon as that scandal came out. So, I mean, we're putting our faith in the soul of corporations here, but potentially makes it difficult to get more sponsors if you've got this kind of shadow hanging over you as someone who cheats. I don't know.
Bottas, by the way, has gone fastest. Yep. First in the 17s, 1:17.8, 27 laps. Carlos Sainz has done a few already, 34 laps. I'll go through the timing. I missed it at half past. I'll do it again at 10 on the hour. But yeah, just note there that Bottas has gone quickest.
And still no time from Williams yet. But they are still putting laps out. They're not.
Somebody did tweet me saying they're doing a lot of work on the aero this morning, so that could be why.
Yeah, they definitely look like they're doing testing seriously.
Yeah, which is great. I know we keep saying it, but they weren't here this time last year. We were. we were there before Williams. But yeah, no. Great to see them out on track as well. Toto Wolff on TV there. Looking bored. He's probably not, but he looks a little bit bored. We'll take some questions of that from Twitter, I think. You can make your points, Stuart. It's fine. We have to refresh and scroll and try and not go to the official one.
That's what I was going to ask you just about that Mercedes livery, but I'll ask you later once you've read the questions out. I'm going to sow you a seed for later. But this article's come out this morning that the Formula One's considering rescheduling the Chinese Grand Prix as a 2-day event in November. So, that's a little teaser. We can talk about that after you've taken some questions, but that could be interesting.
What? China?
So this, according to Autosport, the race could be moved to, to the Abu Dhabi spot, and then squeezing Abu Dhabi a bit later, so it sort of is in the middle of a triple header between Brazil and Abu Dhabi. If you can imagine that.
So we'd have Brazil, China, and Abu Dhabi back to back.
That's not hard in terms of flight or anything.
Well, it depends. Depends what planet you live on. If you live on Sean's planet, if you caught the video the other week, if you live on Sean's planet, that's 3 different continents. Of course, as we know, in the real world, that was just a test. I was just testing you all in that video. That is only 2 continents, although Asia is pretty big, let's be fair. But yeah, see, I just cancel it. Just 22 is too many.
Yeah.
It's not generally a good race anyway. And ultimately, controversial opinion, if they're in the midst of this breakout and they can't host the race, they can't host the race. End of. I know it's not the circuit organisers' fault, it's not the fans' fault, but that's it. We had Bahrain civil unrest back in 2011, that was cancelled. They didn't go racing there. I mean, what I think will happen, if I'm being totally honest, as opposed to all the time when I lie, I don't know why I said that, but if I'm being completely honest for a change, I think what will happen is we'll hear, we're going to do this, we're going to do that, we'll reschedule here, and then we'll get to about August, and everyone will have forgotten about it, and F1 will go, yeah, we're just going to cancel it. And no, everyone will go, whatever, and that'll be it. Do teams want... Because there was talk about extending the season, pushing Abu Dhabi back to the 6th of December and having China the week before. So you'd go Brazil, week off, China, and then Abu Dhabi, which would be slightly easier than 3 races back to back. But that's eating into the time because you then have to push your post Abu Dhabi test back. That then eats even more into your time ahead of a massive rules change. The teams are already knackered. They've had enough at that point. They want to go home. So I'm not sure squeezing China in there will happen, and I don't think it should, but I would say it is better than the other idea that's been put forward multiple times, is that it goes somewhere around Singapore, which would give us Brazil, Italy, Singapore, or China, Singapore, and Russia back-to-back, 5 races.
They would never let that happen.
No, but I think logistically, it can work. Brazil to Abu Dhabi, because they're going from Baku to Canada in a week, in less than a week. So they should be able to pull that off. But we'll stick with China, actually. We might as well. I think your first question, Stuart, before we start talking about Imola, which got me very excited before you came and pooed all over it. But yeah, just very quickly on China, the right call to postpone it, kind of inevitable, wasn't it, really?
Yeah, I mean, they're definitely having problems containing it. And yeah, if you have sports events, you then bring people in from all over, you bring thousands of people in from all over the world and then send them back all over the world. And if you haven't got a handle on a contagious virus, then yeah, you've got to cancel it until you know it's safe to do so, as they are doing with lots of their sports events, which is a shame. But yeah, safety first, of course.
Common sense, wasn't it?
Yeah.
You can't have hundreds of thousands of people in a country struggling to contain a virus converge on one racetrack for the weekend. It's just an incubator. And the other thing as well, which just isn't getting mentioned, and I keep banging this drum, but the other problem is if countries, and we won't get too political, but if countries start quarantining, all of them start doing it for 2 weeks, and the teams go to China, well, that puts the Dutch Grand Prix at risk. It possibly puts the Spanish Grand Prix at risk. If drivers and teams get ill and start contracting the virus, it could put all the other races into the season at risk for the sake of a Chinese Grand Prix. So yeah. I think it was just a common sense thing to do. But Imola apparently have put an application forward to host a Grand Prix in the middle of April, which is like, what, 8 weeks' time or something like that. They're looking at hosting it, which seems like a ridiculous turnaround. I think they've described it as mission impossible. I don't think anything's impossible in Formula One. If Liberty wanted to do it and they could make it work and Imola had the money, they would. But there are so many problems with this. First of all, Imola, the circuit organisers said they wouldn't be able to pay a hosting fee because they wouldn't be able to sell tickets at this short notice, or enough tickets. So that's the end of that one. Because Liberty aren't going to host a race without a fee, are they? There's no way that's going to happen. I think they've admitted that the infrastructure isn't quite there at the tracks. They'd have to sort of put some stuff together in terms of hospitality and that. So that's probably a big no-no for Formula One. Yep. I'd love it to happen, Stuart. I know what you're going to say. But
okay, right. I've revised my opinion on this. Oh. So yeah, okay. Well, in a way. So. Okay. Obviously, it's not going to happen this year. Like, especially in that Chinese Grand Prix slot, it's just whatever the track was. It's turning that around. I've got a feeling Imola are like using it as an opportunity to say, "Hey, remember us? We can still host F1. Let's get people excited about Imola and get that conversation going." And yeah, as I said on Twitter, it's a bit on the small and pokey side for these cars. I don't know if it'd have that. Particularly exciting races, even though it's a classic track. But what if it in future took the spot of the Spanish Grand Prix, which also isn't that exciting and probably less so, and we keep Spain for testing, but actually we put Imola in this slot instead. Like bring it up to sort of F1 standards. It's a classic track. It's probably not going to have the kind of wheel-to-wheel thrills of the wider tracks, but people like Imola, people like Monaco, and not a lot happens there. You know what I mean? Like, why not?
Well, like your point the other day on Twitter about the cars being too big for the track. You're absolutely spot on. I can't disagree with you on that. I think this is more hope than expectation from Imola's point of view. But Austria's not massive, and the cars are good around there. You've just mentioned Monaco, Budapest, the Hungaroring. That's not particularly big either, so they could do it. But I've got to say, just on if we're going to replace the Chinese Grand Prix with a racetrack, just go to Sepang. The track is fantastic. The infrastructure is there. We know we're going to get at least an okay race. Just go there. It's in the right area as well. So that is what I would do. I would be going, come on, Sepang. Come on, put your application in. We want to come to you again. But I think the Imola thing is a nostalgic thing for me.
Yeah.
And I don't want to go too dark because it's only 10 to 10 on the first day of testing. We can be morbid later. But it kind of, although there has been utter tragedy and devastation at that track, it feels like a massively significant historical F1 track, probably for those reasons. And it would be nice to keep racing there, but they would have to do a lot of work, I think, to get that up. And I know it is of FIA standards, so it could host Formula One, but it's not just about there's so much more that needs to be done there. Yeah,
which is not out of the question.
No,
like they are changing Zandvoort, and it's not like Imola hasn't had a host of changes. Particularly after the mid-90s. It's not the same track it, was 30 years ago anyway. And I have, I say this sensibly, some confidence they could make changes to Imola without losing the spirit of what Imola is. Even if it's widening some parts of the track, and I don't know, whatever whatever it takes. But we're seeing Zandvoort's getting some like wider areas and some banking and stuff to try and make it more exciting. I'm still a bit skeptical, possibly off the back of Max Verstappen, who should be the ambassador for Zandvoort, saying, "Yeah, it's a great track, but we'll be able to overtake there." But I'm because people when I sort of came out against Imola, this like Monaco and there's Zandvoort, I was like, I'm going to be tentatively optimistic about Zandvoort. Let's see what it can do.
I'll tell you what, Perez can do. A 17.3,
Nice.
He's gone fastest, and a 17.7 for Verstappen. It's not McLaren's year, it's Racing Point's year, of course. It all makes sense now. Good to see Mercedes put a relatively decent time on the board. I'll do some comparisons to race weekend. Obviously, it's difficult to compare testing to the race weekend because the temperatures are so wildly different for starters. But yeah, 17.3 for Perez, 21 laps. I'll do the order in about 8 minutes' time for anybody listening that can't watch, but I'll do some super chats as well. Just Cals, thank you very much for your contribution, mate. It says, happy you are back streaming F1. So am I. It's been too long, 1st of December. That is a long time without streaming for somebody that normally does it 3 or 4 times a weekend, or what feels like it. Andrew, again, thank you very much for a second contribution. It says, how does a cost cap work for Honda? Is the one specifically for them, or can they spend up to 200 million just on the engine? And Jack Chambers says, you can have a pot noodle on me, mate, 199. If you'd have put another penny in that, mate, it could have got 2 for £2 at the shop. You tight sod. But I'm only joking. Thank you very much for your contributions, guys. Good point on the engine side of things. So, could Honda, for example, as an engine supplier and not a manufacturer of a team, could they spend more on the power unit than, say, Mercedes can?
I mean, that is a very good question. I'll need that look into that. That's seeing as they don't have a works team. Well, they're not like there's not a Honda team as a separate entity. In theory, they could. This is in theory. Based on what I know from the rules, they could spend as much as they want, but they can only charge Red Bull so much. Which my immediate thoughts off that are, if you were supplying 4 teams, for example, you could spend £1 billion on your engine and charge each of them like a quarter of that, or whatever it takes to make the budget, as opposed to if you're supplying 2 teams. It's a very good question.
Yeah, because James in chat asking sort of what would buildings and software development come under? Is that under performance? This is what I mean. You can shuffle your departments around very nicely if you want to get around a cost cap. Oh, but we needed 7,422 billion biros.
Yeah, Oh yeah.
Well, the pens are available.
That the people involved. I'm laying a lot on people like Ross Brawn right now, because when Ross Brawn sort of came into work for F1 for Liberty, the optimism there was that he had run a team, he'd run the technical side of a team. So when helping to shape rules, he would actually understand not just the technical side, but how teams try and get around whatever rules you give them. And I think we're sort of seeing the fruits of that. And again, similarly with cost caps, I think you need people in there who would know how you try and creatively get around that. Um, I don't think, as far as I'm aware, there's much publicly out there about how this all works, what the actual fine rules are, and I suppose if they were out there, it would be worded in such a way that would be horrific to understand if you weren't an accountant or a lawyer.
Yeah.
But that is a good point, and and again, yeah, with buildings and things, like if you need to build a new wind tunnel, does that come under R&D or does that come under just infrastructure, which might be a different thing?
Fascinating to see how they get around it all. I'm really,
Yeah.
part of me is
Yeah.
kind of looking forward to geeking out on that one. Somebody in chat just said that Russell's in the points, and I just had a thought. If I can be bothered, what I
Everyone's
might
in the
do at the end of
points.
each session.
There's only 10 of them.
Yeah, well, yeah, good point. But what I might do is at the end of each day is I might put together a little championship table and actually officially crown a testing champion. I say if I can be bothered. I probably can today. Come next Friday, I probably will just never want to see Formula One. I'm joking. I bloody love this. I've missed this so much. Just sat waffling and talking nonsense, even though it's literally all I've done all winter. To be fair, I will do a couple of people donating over on PayPal. Choising to boycott the 30% that Google take, the robbing swines. Oh, nearly. So yeah, it's all right. We'll sit here and do all the work at Google. You take your money. It's absolutely fine. Watch the stream go down now. Get copyright struck from Google in a massive strop. Thank you very much to, is it Joab? I may have done that already. For your contribution, that's massively appreciated. Every penny, by the way, from these goes into this channel in one way or the other. It also might go to having to buy Stuart and Co a drink for all their help over this, and by a drink I mean, of course, two. Thank you very much to Jonas. Says, hey, I was super hyped about testing, but my company's browser blocks the F1 stream, so you guys saved my day. Greetings from Germany. No problem at all. Thank you for joining us, and thank you for your contribution. And Adi as well, contributing too. Thank you for yours as well. I think that's everybody over on PayPal. Like I say, if you do donate through PayPal, please do leave a little message. Again, even if it's just to say hi. It just gives me something to read out. Ferg will send me a link to their gallery, so I'll put some more pictures in shortly. I don't know if he's watching the stream, probably paying attention to the F1, but good afternoon, or good morning. Not afternoon yet, Sean, feels like it, to Fergal. And I'm loving this Twitter feed, Stuart. People atting Sky F1, but using my hashtag.
Incredible.
It's like, no worries there at all. 3 minutes before I go through the order again.
I've just seen Daniel Ricciardo's helmet, and I'm not sure if it's a testing helmet or the real thing.
That's what I was doing. I was going to put that picture in. Thank you, Stuart, for reminding me there. I am just going to be really lazy when I do this. So, I'm going to call it big picture to fill the screen. So this is the transition into this is going to be absolutely fantastic. So I'm sure I just saved that. There it is. It looks... that is a skillful way to get a picture into a stream. Look at that. And I'll even shuffle it up as well. It's purple. It is.
It's very purple.
But I like it. Very simple. I wonder, because I liked his I've forgotten who it was now, the silver one he had last year for the 1000th race.
Oh yeah. Sorry, I thought you meant the pastel sort of.
Oh, I like that one too.
Yeah, no, I do like it. And drivers tend to stay away from purple helmets for obvious reasons, but we've got Lewis and Ricciardo now. There's a picture I'm looking at where it's sort of front on. It's very, very bold. I like it. I hope he sticks with it. Though I think last year he did have a testing helmet while he was still working on this pastel thing. But yeah, I like it a lot.
It's nice. It's simple. I like stuff like that. So yeah, I'll leave it. There you go. You like it, everyone? Annette likes it. Of course, Annette likes it. He could turn up in anything and she'd love it.
Or nothing.
Well, that's a question for Annette to answer, or for anybody in chat for that matter. But there you go. What do you like? Do you like Hamilton's helmet as well? Then
I do.
I do.
I like that he's got this base kind of pattern, and he sort of. I'm always a little bit sad that we've kind of moved away from this kind of. You have your driver helmet colors, and that's it, kind of like a flag. And I don't know if this is me being old on. I'm being, it was better in the old days. I did like the kind of drivers used to have the kind of very simple designs. It was very much, like a country flag. It was sort of like you'd have three colors or whatever. It was a very distinctive, sharp pattern, and you could recognize them anywhere. Whereas nowadays, there's like lots of kind of a very kind of intricate design. There's lots of sort of fades and things, and it's very hard to recognize a driver from their helmet, I think, especially as they change them so often.
Annette said
But
he could definitely turn up in nothing, so she's happy for that.
way.
Yeah, but like Martin Brundle, for example, that was red, white, and a bit of blue, and Nigel Mansell was red, white, and blue. Michael Schumacher had the German flag on the back, didn't he?
Yeah.
I like that sort of thing.
And Ralph Schumacher had a yellow version of that.
Yeah, and cool. Mick Schumacher, curiously, is a bit more Ralph in his helmet design than he is Michael. Yeah. Which
maybe
is
to kind of separate him from Michael a bit.
Try and break the connection, yeah, because that's just the comparison that's going to come, isn't it, every time? And
actually, I think as soon as Vettel was told to stop changing his helmet, he came up with a very nice design that's really recognizable.
Yeah. Oh, I love that design.
Really
Again,
cool.
It's quite simple, isn't it? And you can tweak that for race weekends. But I'm going to go through the timing, and I do want to talk about Sebastian Vettel in a moment. So
I'm going to take a quick break. So I'll be back in a few minutes while you do all that.
Yes.
All right.
Enjoy.
Okay.
So currently fastest, everybody. Sergio Perez in the Racing Point, 117.375. 24 laps on the board. That is on a medium compound of tyre. Max Verstappen, 117.787. 45 laps for him on a harder compound. I'll wait for those to pop up on screen. I'll try and do that. The F1 live timing's down. I don't know why, so I'm relying on GP today, which is fine. Valtteri Bottas, 117.835 laps for him so far. Carlos Sainz Jr., as it says there, 118.0, 42 laps. About 7/10 between Perez in first and Sainz in fourth place. Charles Leclerc for Ferrari. He's in for Sebastian Vettel, by the way. We'll talk about Seb shortly. He's not very well. He was supposed to be in today, but it looks like he'll be in tomorrow. 118.3 for him. 30 laps so far, again on a hard compound of tyre. Esteban Ocon back in F1, of course. 18.491. 22 laps. He's on a medium compound. George Russell up there on a soft compound, it must be said. 31 laps on the board. 119.1. But Williams for much of the morning focusing, as I'm sure you'll know, if you've been watching throughout, on their aero and whatnot. Kevin Magnussen, 119.433, 20 laps for him on the medium tyre. Robert Kubica, he's in this morning for Alfa Romeo, 119.916, 22 laps, medium again. I will try and get the C1, 2, 3, 4 and 5 key sorted for the afternoon stream. Daniel Kvyat in the Alfa Tauri, a 120.1, 20 laps on the board on the medium tyres. And then we've got Lance Stroll, Daniel Ricciardo, Kimi Raikkonen and Lewis Hamilton is on that table, but they're not going to be in until this afternoon. Currently on track, we've got Max Verstappen, Charles Leclerc, Esteban Ocon and Daniel Kvyat. Everybody else in the pits. And if you're watching on TV, you can watch it, by the way, via Sky F1 in the UK, Sky Italy over in, obviously, Italy. I don't know. Why did I explain that? Anyway, you can also watch on F1 TV if it is available where you are. Otherwise, you're stuck with me and Stuart and then me and Dan this afternoon talking nonsense all day. And we'll be live for all 6 days of testing. Same as usual, 8:30 till 12 and 1:30 till 5. So yeah, I do usual stuff. If you're just tuning in, no race footage, obviously, for copyright reasons. And if you want to contribute to the stream, you can do so by following the links down below. We've got links to Streamlabs, to PayPal, and for Super Chat. But don't forget that pesky Google take 30% of your donations. So I would highly recommend PayPal or Streamlabs if you want to make a donation. It's all going towards a brand new mic setup, so it's not so variable. I'm so fed up of my audio and I have to mess about editing it so much. So it'd be great to actually be able to get a decent balance with a proper XLR mic. So that is my plan. That is my plan. Yes, so there we go. I'm going to just have a look on Twitter as well. I'll take some questions from chat. Actually, I'll do chat. We've not done much of chat just yet, have we? So, see what you guys are saying. Is Sky Italy available in Ireland? It could be. Look, there'll be other ways, other more adventurous ways and illegal ways to watch the stream, but I can't promote them because I mean, yeah, F1 likes copyright strike at testing, so I don't want to give them any other reason to get mad at me for absolutely nothing. What do you think of the AlphaTauri car? Says F1 Online Gamer. Massive fan of that livery. As I've already said, I can't not love it. I can't not love it. Very simple, very smart. And I think, Yeah, I mean, they're confident, AlphaTauri, this year. They're aiming top 5. Which, kind of as I was saying in Monday's video, if you've got Racing Point targeting 4th, Renault targeting 4th, McLaren targeting 4th, and AlphaTauri think they're top 5, 4 into 1 or 2 places ain't going to go. We're going to get such a good fight in that midfield. We really, really are. So I cannot wait. I cannot wait. Why are there only 3 compounds? I think all 5 compounds are there. But I haven't got the key up just yet because I forgot to ask for it. It's my fault, totally my fault, but I'll message Fergal in the lunch break and just double check what the key is for that one. But as and when they crop up on the TV, which they are doing proper timing this year, I can let you know. In fact, I'll tell you what we'll do actually. I will just head over and see if F1 have sorted their timing out because they normally have the timing screens up, but they've not got them today for some reason, and I don't know why. There is the option to join a live session, but it takes you to absolutely nothing. So really annoying that we've not got official F1 timing up. Classic F1, really, isn't it? So yes, but your white is your hard tyre, so that'll be a C1. Your yellow's a medium, so that could be a 2 or a 3, and then your softs are 4 and 5. So, but I will, like I said, I get a proper key for it for the afternoon stream. So apologies for that, totally my fault. But yes. Hello, you're back.
I am back. Anyone crashed?
No, and Crofty was pointing out about 10 minutes ago, actually, no red flag yet, knock on wood, which is about all that seemed to happen last year.
Yeah.
It felt like that, didn't it? Red flags left, right and centre.
And you do tend to get that in early days as well because, you're still betting the cars in. But 6 days of testing, you really just don't want anything. You want minimum red flags. You don't want to break down. You don't want to crash the car because that's a huge testing time gone.
So I'm just looking at the Sky thing now, the tyres. So C2, I wonder if Pirelli have put something out. Let me check. And then I'll come back to my official hashtag. Whoops. Hey, I put a W in. It's not my fault, okay? So here we go. They've got something here. So the C2 is white. The C3 is yellow. And the C4 is red. C5 is no brackets red. And C1 is no brackets white, but I'm not sure how GP today are doing that. So, again, bear with me on that.
Well, we'll keep an eye on the visuals as well on screen.
Yes, of course, yeah.
Because we'll be able to see it on the tyres, hopefully. But there you go, Bottas on the C2 right now. Just doesn't help us with the actual fastest lap, so does it?
No, it doesn't. I mean, Pirelli will post something in the end, so I can always pop that up at the start of the next stream to let people know. But yeah, just look at the screen. Actually, Ricciardo, Latifi, Stroll, Hamilton, and Giovinazzi in the cars this afternoon. So yeah,
Williams are not 10th, so they're clearly back.
Champions.
Oh, God, just watching Bottas lose the back end over the chicane. That was slippery as hell.
Watching him talking about Stroll now in the commentary on Sky. Yeah, let's not get back into Lance Stroll. I'm sure we'll talk about him more over the next 2 weeks. Sebastian Vettel, not very well today. Was supposed to be in the car. Charles Leclerc's in for him, but reports in Italy. So have you got your salt? Plenty of it. Massive pinch of salt, practically a bucket of salt. He has allegedly been offered a contract from Ferrari.
Okay.
And that they want to keep him. They did say, to be fair, at the launch they wanted to keep him. So he was their first option, their priority. So apparently he has been offered a contract for 2021. Again, that's reports in Italy.
Yeah.
So, yeah, take that with a big pinch of salt. But who else is there? It looks like Hamilton's staying at Mercedes. Mercedes look like they're staying in F1, so that's not going to change. I think Bottas will probably end up staying at Mercedes for 2021 as well. Who's getting, Alonso, he's already himself written himself out of the Ferrari link, saying no conversations are happening. He doesn't feel the time is right to return to Ferrari. So,
yeah,
who'd you put in that car? Giovinazzi? Really? Unless he blows people away this year, I can't see that happening.
Yeah, when you're Ferrari, what do you want? It's because especially as Vettel was, because I feel like Ferrari have very clearly laid their mark down that Charles Leclerc is their future. They've locked him down for the next 14 years or whatever it is. Definitely like 2023 or something, isn't it?
Yeah,
They've
end of
got
20, no, end of 24 for Leclerc and 23
yeah,
for Max.
yeah, those are both like, you know, really stamping down, this is what our next 4 or 5 years are gonna look like. Um, so I guess as Vettel, you're like, there's nowhere else to go, but now I've got sort of got to prove that I'm worth keeping around. You know, the kind of the same way Alonso was at the end of his career. It's like, is it, well, kind of before he sort of was shifted off to McLaren, which is an odd place for him to be. But yeah, similarly, like Vettel and Ferrari, what other options do each of them have? Unless Giovinazzi, yeah, proves does something amazing this year. Um, but if Giovinazzi does a good enough job, would Ferrari be like, "Cool, you're going to be a wingman to Leclerc"? Ferrari, traditionally not enjoying having two drivers that
Mm.
are both championship contenders.
I mean, a couple of people in chat saying Ricardo. I think he'd be a good driver to put alongside Leclerc, but I think I'm in the minority when I say this. But I still think Seb's got something to give.
Yeah,
I
no, I agree.
really do. And I think his experience in 2021 could be massive because let's not forget that, we get to 2021, Leclerc's only been in F1 for 3 years.
Yeah,
So having somebody of Vettel's experience could be massive for Ferrari. And that's why I think that Mercedes will stick with Bottas as well, rather than putting Russell up in 2021. I think Russell might be in for 2022, but keep Bottas to keep that lineup. It's one less thing to worry about. I don't think this market's going to be as crazy as we thought it was going to be this year.
well, last year was a nothing, was it?
No.
Considering 2018 was just all over the place. I think, yeah,
I just think if you've got this massive rule change, the last thing teams want to be worrying about is how's driver X going to settle in. If they've got a good enough lineup, like what's wrong with Hamilton and Bottas as a lineup from Mercedes' point of view? Absolutely nothing. Bottas is there as the number 2. Sorry, Bottas fans, but he is.
yeah,
He helps them towards the constructors' title. He does a good job. He picks up the points when Hamilton rarely, it must be said, doesn't. Germany aside, of course. Verstappen, Red Bull's all about him. So an Albon, a Gasly, a Kvyat, that's absolutely fine from their point of view. Ferrari, Leclerc and Vettel, experience in the future. That works really, really well. Sainz and Norris at McLaren, I don't think that's going to change. Stroll and Perez at Racing Point, we already know in theory is staying the same. So the only lineups I think are likely to change for 2021 are Haas, but I feel like I've said that for the last 3 years. Possibly Williams if Latifi doesn't cut it or somebody comes along with a bit more money. And I think I'm just having a look now at the timing tower. I don't see Renault changing because I don't think Ricciardo will leave unless a Ferrari seat or a Mercedes seat opens up, and I don't think they're changing.
mm-hmm.
I don't think AlphaTauri will change because as much as I like the likes of Yuri Vips, I don't think he's ready yet for Formula One. But then a lot of people said that about Max Verstappen, not comparing, just making a point. Maybe Alpha Romeo if Kimi decides he's off, but yeah, I just don't
I
see
think
much changing.
I got 2 questions, just in general. Maybe the first is around Mercedes. And I think we might have touched on this before, but like, obviously Ferrari, Red Bull laid down where they're putting their sort of championship number 1 drivers for the next, half a decade. Mercedes still have question marks over how long Hamilton's going to stick around. There have been question marks there for quite a few years. So, he could leave after, his 7th championship. He could stay on for a little while. We've no idea. But what Mercedes don't have at the moment is this younger protege who's ready to come up against Max and Charles, through the 2020s. Who's there waiting in the wings? It's probably not Bottas. So do they want to put someone in Bottas's seat next year to kind of get them ready for that kind of when that time comes? And I sort of similar questions around McLaren. Like we were talking about, like gearing up for 2021 and making a major jump on the regulations, and McLaren are resourced enough to maybe have a go at that. And I think Sainz and Norris are really good. Are they McLaren's? Are they the people that are going to take McLaren to a championship? I don't think we know that yet. There's sort of question marks there, I think. The biggest question mark, I think, is that Mercedes question. I don't know what you think. What would you do if you're Mercedes? Who you think they're lining up and keeping their eyes on?
I think it's got to be Russell. But I can't. I don't know why, but I can't see them going Hamilton Russell. I think the only way Russell's getting in that car is if Hamilton retires. I don't know, or leaves. I don't know why that. I can't explain why. I genuinely can't explain why I think that. I just have this feeling that they won't put Russell in that car. He's the one to replace Hamilton for them. Which is why, Claire Williams is like, no, hang on a minute, we've got him here for the next couple of seasons. Don't start talking like that. He's our driver. I can't see Ocon. I think Ocon's done at Mercedes unless he really surprises this year. So short term, gotta be Bottas, surely. But long term, I think Russell comes in if Hamilton leaves.
That's a really interesting. Well, I guess feeling that you have.
I think it is because that Mercedes came in 2010 with an all-German lineup. They don't have a German. It doesn't matter. They don't need to. But from a marketing point of view, even though they're based in the UK, do a German car brand want 2 British drivers or 2 French drivers or 2 Italian drivers? But then they haven't got a German driver at the minute, so it's really, I can't explain what I'm thinking. There's something bugging me about the idea of Russell and Hamilton being together. I just don't see it happening.
See, I think if I was Mercedes looking forward, I probably would try and stick him in the car next year, assuming Russell has a good 2020, and there's no reason to think he wouldn't. Balanced by whatever the Williams car can do. Bottas is always this big question mark, and I think they're going to need to start thinking what's next. But I guess we've said this about Bottas for a couple of years in a row now. I'm fairly happy with him to sort of sit there like a Barrichello, bringing home the points and the wins whenever Hamilton can't. Yeah. I'm not sure I agree with you about the sort of not being Russell in kind of point, but I think it is fascinating. I think the whole looking at the driver market as this kind of flowing entity, and you've got people coming up from the bottom, and you've got people in the midfield trying to get into top seats and only having a certain amount of places to fill. Because actually, once you get the really good drivers and the really good teams, you tend to get those places locked down for years and years. So there's actually not much wiggle room to flow up to those top teams right now. So if you are Ocon and you're doing really well in the Renault, where do you go if not Mercedes? If Renault can't take it to the big leagues?
Jack Chambers, Van Dorn is a Merc test driver. There you go. Van Dorn in the Mercedes, world champion 2021, wins 8 in the row.
That's a good. I mean, he was leading the Formula E championship until
until he binned it. Oh, stuff. Not good enough. I completely agree. Mercedes are the fascinating. Ferrari have got Leclerc, Red Bull have got Verstappen, haven't they? That's all about him. Even I suppose actually, Renault behind the scenes they've got some good young drivers coming through, but also Ocon's not exactly 106, is he? He's still plenty young enough to stay there for a long time if they want to put everything behind him. But they're on screen now. What about Haas? Do you think? I'm asking this question again. Do we think we'll see Magnussen and Grosjean together this time next year? I'm going to say yes now because every single year I've said no, and they just don't change it. And I'd love to sit here and say if it ain't broke, don't fix it. But it's a bit like Williams. It's that argument with Williams. Like, they've not really done much this year. They've not changed philosophy. And it's like, if it ain't broke, hang on a minute, it is broke. Damn. Yeah.
I think some of it will depend on who's coming up from like Formula 2 or Super Formula or that kind of area, and how many. Because potentially Ferrari with Haas and Alfa Romeo have a few seats they can sort of encourage to be filled. Right now, they're doing just fine with Alfa Romeo, but um, I think Kimi probably in his last year, maybe.
Yeah, but don't you feel like you've been saying that for the last 12 years?
I know, but at least it's at the end of his contract now.
Yeah, true.
If Grosjean goes, I, I feel like okay, it's very strange because the Formula One's been a little bit stagnated in kind of drivers coming through lately. It's kind of hard to see it all laid out. You kind of have to look down to Formula 2 and say, like, well, okay, well, which of these sort of junior drivers are going to move up? And we may have like a massive influx of them next year if we get rid of. You could lose Magnussen and Grosjean and Raikkonen and maybe Hamilton if he's like, right, I'm done now. I got my seventh, and then suddenly have like a whole world and shuffle around. And then you may be asking, like, well, where do we find drivers rather than where do we find spaces? I think there's a lot of question marks over between this year and next year. I can't believe we're already talking about next year and we're 2 hours into testing for this year.
It's just the way F1 works, isn't it?
Yeah.
I think such a big change next year. It's got everyone wondering, which is why I'm just wondering if the drivers will change much. But if one of the Red Bull juniors, a Yuri Vips, for example, does well enough, and he does get, I keep mentioning Yuri Vips today, don't I? I'll be a fanboy before the end of the week. But if he keeps, progressing well and can pick up those super license points, maybe they give him a shot in that AlphaTauri and maybe Fiat to Haas. Maybe. Could be an option for them if there isn't somebody in F2 they're going to grab. But they've got, is it Fittipaldi they've got as their reserve? So how much of a backing are they putting behind him, I suppose, is a question. But a Haas team that look to back young drivers, because and I mean this with all due respect to teams like Haas, I really do, but a young driver doesn't go to Haas to win titles. A young driver goes to Haas to get into F1 to develop, to go to Mercedes or Ferrari or Red Bull to win titles.
Yeah, Haas are ever since they've arrived, their whole I haven't really struggled to understand Haas as a team, and I know they've got pedigree in racing, particularly in America. But you look at now AlphaTauri, and you sort of have an understanding like that's not a team that has a mission to win world championships.
No.
And they're perfectly they want to succeed and they want to do well, and getting podiums and that potentially occasionally wins is like great for them, and they're always looking to do that, but they're not out there to like get to the very top. But then Haas, I'm like, what are they? They're kind of like a perma midfield team. In a way, I suppose Racing Point kind of are, but I guess Haas. I don't know. I don't know what Haas are. I've always struggled to understand the identity and ambition of Haas, particularly as they've kind of wedded themselves into being sort of Ferrari's kind of like, spare parts buyers.
I was just going to say that, yeah. I think that's part of the problem, is because you look at them and go, are they a Ferrari B team? Are they a Ferrari B and a bit team? Yeah.
But that seems like Alfa Romeo are Ferrari's real B. So are they like, what are they?
Who are you? What are you doing here?
They stick with no offense to Grosjean, but they, Haas don't fill themselves with a particularly ambitious driver lineup. Magnussen, I still haven't made my mind up on that. So I'm like, are they building to move up the ranks, or are they happy coming like fifth? What do they want? Who are they?
Well, this is what I don't get with K-Mag. He said again, second time in a year, that he said in an interview that he's in F1 to win championships. He doesn't want to stay his whole career if he's just going to be driving around in the midfield. It's like, you're a Haas, mate. I like K-Mag. I'm maybe in the minority. I'd love to see him in a Ferrari. I think he'd cause absolute chaos. I think he'd be brilliant at the front of the grid, getting his elbows out with your Hamiltons and your Bottases and your Leclercs and Verstappens. I think that's an explosive championship lineup. But are Ferrari going to take a risk on a Magnussen? Like nothing against him, but if they're kind of at times last year struggled to manage Leclerc and Vettel, they're not going to manage Leclerc and Magnussen. It's just not going to happen. So
Yeah.
I like the guy, and I like that he's kind of old school, isn't he? He's kind of like, this is what I think. You're a knob. I don't care if you don't like it. I am going to drive you off the road. This is how I drive. And people, I think, is it Martin Brundle said you have to treat him like the hind legs of a donkey?
Yeah.
Like old
Yeah.
school F1 driver. So I kind of like that, but I can't see Ferrari.
No, I think Ferrari would want someone of Magnussen's skill level,
Yeah.
but without the sort of fiery ego.
And then he said Perez then, but he has his moments, doesn't he?
Yeah, yeah. Luckily, he's like now paired with a driver who's skilled, so they're not always on track at the same point.
Just weird about Perez though is he's got that streak in him, but he's so chill. Do you know what I mean?
He's kind of the guy you want, isn't he? He's like super chill guy, and then stick him in a car, and that's when the fire comes out.
Christian Horner there having a chat to F1. Am I right to leave you with the chat for a couple of minutes, Stuart, while I nip off and have a break? Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll leave you in charge.
I'll see if I can read the chat here. I'm having to turn my head to read the chat because it's on a completely different screen.
Awesome.
Okay. Fact of the day. If George Russell had set his lap time this time last year, he would have been second. But he didn't because Williams didn't turn up till week 2. But 40 laps on the board for George Russell with an 18.5. Whether or not they end up being worst on the grid doesn't matter. This is a much, much better start to them. Let's have a little look at the chat. Yellow flag for Sean Jonty. Daniel says, will Grosjean get a podium? You know what? Let's say yes. I know that's what you want to hear. Yes, he will get many podiums, and then he will retire in glory. Andras Cohen says, can you tell me why purple is usually avoided? No, this is a PG stream, but there are reasons why purple helmets might not be elicited. Delete the channel as a joke. Look, Liberty Media continue to try and delete these streams, so I don't need me to do that. Can anyone update me on what I missed? Yeah, cars have been going round and round for about 2.5 hours. There's been no red flags. Everybody seems pretty chill. It's probably the most successful morning, day one of testing I've ever seen in my life. There are literally no dramas. Could Mercedes get Lando in? I don't think anytime soon. Having said that, with the Mercedes-McLaren partnership coming up, they could start to open up that pipeline of drivers. So maybe in the future, but Sean seems to think you can't have 2 British drivers in the same Mercedes team. I don't know how many people agree with that. Yeah, Matt, I don't know why Grosjean is still in the sport too, to be honest. Okay, I have nothing particular against Grosjean other than I get a little bit frustrated when there are like drivers been around for a very long time and seem to have peaked, and at the same time having a lot of hungry young new drivers eager to fill seats, and those seats not being available. Obviously, there's only 20 seats in Formula One, and I think when you're at the very peak of motorsport, you either have to like do something exciting or make way for someone else to try. And I think I kind of think it's time for Grosjean to make way. I think it was time for Hulkenberg to make way. But that's up to Haas, of course. They seem pretty chill with what's going on. You know what? I just watching the McLaren go around. I really don't like the numbers on the nose. You can't read them. You can read the numbers on the side of the car, but on the nose of the car, it looks just like a barcode until it gets very close. What is better, chassis or engine for overall? Uh, there's no decent answer to that question because look at last year. Top three teams had three different engines. So, they obviously clearly had three different chassis as well, but it wasn't like you were seeing Mercedes. In fact, Mercedes engine not as good or as dominant as it had been in, the early teens, the 2014 to 2017 kind of place. Mercedes, their beta teams not doing as well as like Ferrari or Renault's teams. But there is a balancing act there, and I think actually engines are fairly sort of parative at the moment. I think clearly in 2014 we had that hybrid debut. The engines were probably the most important part of the car, and Mercedes got those bang on, but they've kind of evened out these days.
I'm back.
You're back! Hooray!
Yes, I'll just put some pictures
Good.
in very quickly while I had a minute.
Oh, just saying, if George Russell had set that time this time last year, he would be second.
Oh, wow. Progress.
Not sure what that means, but
If you have a look at comparisons to last year's race, I know, again, totally pointless. Yes, I did, Jack. I even washed my hands, mate. So pole time last year was a 1:15.4. So we're only what 1.9 off that in testing, which is interesting. And the fastest lap of the race was a 1:18.4. So we're quicker than the race fastest lap. I know obviously conditions are very different and whatnot, and fuel loads
tires,
and the business.
you can have 1.5 compounds.
I always find that a fascinating comparison, though, even though it is completely irrelevant. But then this is testing, and pretty much everything is completely irrelevant, which is why we love just waffling for 7 hours a day. Currently, Perez still fastest. So he's at the moment going to be heading the championship, 17.3, 24 laps. Bottas 17.5 on 46 laps. Verstappen 17.7 on 54. Sainz 18.0, 48 laps. Ocon 18.0, 30 laps. Leclerc 18.3, 34 laps. Russell 18.5 on 43 laps. That is, and I know this without even looking, 43 more laps than they managed this time last year. Magnussen 30 laps, 85. It's just I'm still using my fingers. 34 minus, yeah. Kvyat 20.1, 30, and Kubica sandwich between those two on 19.9 on 26 laps. Tyre wise, see what Pirelli is saying, because it's kind of difficult to do this without a rough idea. I think we had this last year, didn't we, with tyres and whatnot. So. Pirelli aren't saying anything. That's really helpful. Thanks,
Pirelli. Someone asked a question in chat that sort of spun me off on a line of thinking, and it does end up with going against the fundamental philosophy you seem to think Mercedes have. McLaren will be moving to Mercedes engines next year, which potentially opens up a new pipeline of drivers into them. So 2022 Russell Norris at Mercedes?
Oh, God. I thought you were going to say maybe Sainz to Mercedes to replace Bottas for next year, and maybe a Wehrlein or something to McLaren. Ooh. Or a Hülkenberg.
A Hülkenberg?
I like Nico, but I kind of heard you say that it felt like the right time for him to go. And I think, and this is going to sound awful, and I know I've got a patron who is going to hate these words that come out of my mouth, and I know Jamie, who's on stream tomorrow, is a massive Hülkenberg fan and he's going to hate me. But until you said Hülkenberg, I'd forgotten about him. And I feel awful, because if there's one driver I really like as a person, it was like in interviews and stuff, it was Hülkenberg, and I also think he was in some ways underrated as well as some ways being overrated, but I'd completely forgotten.
It happens so quickly.
It does, but you do that, don't you? It's like Toro Rosso. Who are they? No, not really. Yeah,
well, I kind of.
Oh, I got a story. I'm going to tell the story. I wasn't going to, but I'm going to do it. Okay, so
Okay.
contrary to what my comment section will have you believe, I'm not a horrible person. I'm not a cocky person. I'm not even a confident person. I'm socially awkward. I love saying that. But I went to a party on Saturday night, steady on, 33 years old and still partying, get in. But I went to a 40th birthday party, and there was a guy there who was a friend of a friend of a friend of a friend, and he is a massive F1 fan, massive self-proclaimed F1 fan, knows more than anybody else. He was that kind of person, and he's talking about the channel, I'm explaining what I do, and I don't know about you, Stuart, but trying to explain to people what YouTube is and how you make money off YouTube is like trying to explain the theory of life, the universe, and everything. Like, people look at you like, well, how does that work? Well, let me explain. And then you put it in the most simple terms, and they go, I still don't get it, but whatever. So I was explaining all this to him, and he turned to me about an hour later, really quite rude. I hope he's not listening. Jesus Christ! Really quite snappy, or felt like quite rude about it, and was like, "Oh, you think you're some kind of F1 expert? I know how to catch you out." I was like, "Oh, I don't think I'm an expert at all. Anyone who's watched my videos knows I'm not a bloody expert." But he goes, "Oh, what team did No, what's it? I can't remember now. Yeah, that was it. Who were Alfa Romeo before they were Alfa Romeo?" And I went, "Sauber." He just went, no. So you don't know as much as you think you do. They were Force India. And I just sat, and I'm not a smug person, but that moment, that for the first time in probably the 2 years I've had the channel, I got something right. This smirk came across my face, and I just looked at him, and I just went, Sauber. And he went, what? And I went, Sauber became Alfa Romeo, Force India became Racing Point, and Racing Point next year will be Aston Martin. And the response I got was, you could probably guess, chat, what the response was. It was, oh yeah, that's what I meant. Sod off. So for the first time ever, I just felt massively smug, and I just loved that moment. It was so satisfying. I think the only thing more satisfying from a YouTube perspective is when somebody corrects you in the comments with a fact that is not correct, and it turns out yours was correct. Yes. I think you're fine. Actually, Grosjean never drove for Lotus. It's like, actually, he did. But yeah, that was the story. There you go. I've got some more. I've been saving them up for these, so I've got some more stories for you later in the week. But yeah, if he's watching, no hard feelings. It's nice. It's nice to be right.
I know those exact kind of people you meet. I've also seen those exact kind of people in comments, which I no longer read. It's quite nice.
You read your comments?
No. I do a very quick browse on day one of putting a video out, and then that's it.
Do you know what I used to do?
What's that?
I used to, and it was some advice I'd read, because as you all know, I used to really struggle with trolling. It used to really affect me. Now I just don't care. That's a lie. Any YouTuber that tells they don't care about trolling is lying. But what I basically mean is I just brush it off now. But I used to put a video up, watch the comments for an hour, and then that was it. I would never go back in that comment section. But I decided a few weeks back to go and finally go through my held for review section. That was painful 3 hours. There were tears. There weren't really. It was emotional. It was a roller coaster. And in the end, I was like, after I got through that, there was about 1,800 comments in there. 90% of which were fine. They got in there because somebody had put a link instead of, or hadn't put a space between their full stop and created a link. But there were some that were just so horrible. And by the time I got to the end of it, I just was like, I just don't care. If you feel free to abuse me, it's making no difference to my life. You're still clicking on my video. You're interacting with the video, which is helping the channel. So if you really hate the channel, don't interact if you hate me that much. But I've learned to brush it off massively now. But I always used to, it was a strict rule. I'd read the comments for an hour after the video went up, and that was it. But I kind of felt like, and obviously I'm not telling you how you should do it, Stuart, at all, not for a second. But I always felt like it was unfair on people, for example, like Annette, who is the other side of the world, that if I put a video up at 4 p.m. and it's 4 a.m., for example, over there, she misses that interaction potentially with me.
Yeah.
And I might never see a comment. So I always felt like really bad about that. But it does mean you get a lot of criticism. So I totally understand why you just do a quick skim and walk away. Because some can be, bad.
For all problems I have with algorithms, YouTube does seem to be quite good at locking away the bad ones.
Yeah.
It's even if it's just by tone, it seems to recognize like people trolling, which is quite good. Someone asked a question in the chat that I thought would be good for you as a Schumacher fanboy. How would you feel about Hamilton reaching that championship record? Because now it's very much a possibility and on the table. How do you feel about that?
It's a conflicting feeling, because if he does it, he deserves it.
Yeah.
And I know people won't agree. People go, oh, he's always got the fastest car, whereas Michael Schumacher always had the slowest. And I think there's a bit of disbelief, even though there's a feeling of inevitability about it. I never thought we'd see anybody get near those records.
No, yeah. At the time, I was like, wow, this is it.
That's the biggest surprise for me. If he does it, he deserves it. Absolutely. You know, you can have the fastest car. You've still got to beat your teammate. It's an argument we'll get into, I'm sure, multiple times this season about how good Lewis Hamilton is. But there is a little bit of me that doesn't want him to, but I think, and again, I don't want to go too morbid, but I think because of the situation with Schumacher at the moment, I don't want those records to get broken.
Yeah.
Partly because I kind of want that legacy to stay intact, but also because I think he should witness that. I know he can't help his condition, nobody can, but that's the sort of thing that I think he should witness. Alain Prost witnessed Schumacher beat his records, and it would be nice to have that moment. If Hamilton wins an 8th world title, and this is totally personal, I know this is probably never going to happen, but if Hamilton won an 8th world title and topped the win total and all of that, how amazing would it be if the first time we saw Schumacher in all these years was him arriving to congratulate Lewis Hamilton on that title?
Yeah.
That would be incredible. So I guess to answer your question, I don't want him to for multiple reasons, mainly because I'm a Schumacher fan and I want those to stay intact. But at the same time, if he does it, I can't begrudge him that, because he deserves it. And I think there's an air of inevitability about it as well, isn't there now? I think we're kind of expecting it. Really?
Yeah, we're not going to be surprised by it. And I think, again, I'm not an expert on other sports, but I feel particularly in Formula One, there's all records are kind of framed in the context in which they were achieved. Particularly, for example, we assume Hamilton will probably get the most wins at some point, but he's had more opportunity to have that amount of races because we're doing so many races these years, much more Mecca was pounding out every year.
So this is the thing, isn't it? You can't, comparing eras is always difficult, but nowadays it's just impossible. It's like, do you remember when Fernando Alonso, sorry to step on your point here, but do you remember Fernando Alonso had that special helmet to celebrate him breaking a points record?
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, but mate, points are down to 10th place and it's 25 for a win now. It's not really a record, is it, anymore?
And that's, again, impossible to kind of tease out. You can't sort of, I mean, you can maybe kind of attempt to reconfigure every race into 1-point system on Excel and then like divide it by the number of races, so it's like average points. But again, then you're sort of being a bit of a stats nerd and no one cares. And also, it is sort of down to your relationship with the team and the car as well as stuff. And Hamilton's had a very, very successful team around him for the last few years, and Schumacher did for a certain amount of time, but it maybe wasn't as dominant, or you could argue about that. And some people will still say Fangio or Senna were the greatest of all time because there's a kind of context to what they were achieving. And so while it's good to have records on the board, I think different people will see different drivers in different ways, and I don't think there's like ever going to be a definitive GOAT, as I think they call them now.
These kids.
Mm-hmm.
How do you think really you need to be looking at win percentage? and title percentages and stuff like that. Like you say, be a proper stats nerd if you want to compare who's the best or pick a greatest. Because like you say, if it's all right topping the wins tally, but if you've got 22 opportunities this season to do it versus 9, as I think it was at one point, possibly even less in the past, it's almost inevitable, isn't it? You're going to top that.
Yeah. And I think I think it's Fangio has like an absurd like over 50% win record, and he only did like 4 races or something. They were only doing handfuls of races a year back in his time, but again, back in those days, your teammate could get out of your car and give it to you if it would help you win halfway through a race. It's like, this sport evolves in ways that other sports don't, and every championship is sort of within the context of the rules and the way you raced, and there's so many variables going on that it is difficult to tease that apart.
I think we should all agree they're all bloody brilliant.
They are good.
They're doing it for our entertainment, and it doesn't matter who's the greatest, says Schumacher fanboy, with Hamilton looming down on records. Thank you very much to your contributions. Billy Ray Walrus, awesome name. Thank you very much for your contribution there. Oz as well, thank you for yours. Says, question to both. Who will finally dethrone Hamilton? Also to Stuart, how come the F1 bingo? Oh, no, sorry. I didn't read that. Has gone missing for 7 months now. Joke. It is a joke, apparently. Enjoy the testing.
What's the first question?
We'll not get into it. It's a running joke. Who will finally dethrone Hamilton? I think you're looking at Verstappen or Leclerc if we're basing it on what we know now. But I hope we don't know. I hope somebody. Wouldn't it be great if somebody just out of nowhere come like a Robert Schwartzman gets promoted in a couple of years' time and then suddenly just rocks F1 and becomes the next Schumacher, Hamilton, or whatever. Be great. I mean, it'd be great to see Verstappen do it or Leclerc, but just somebody we don't know, somebody that's not on the grid yet. That'd be amazing.
I think it's going back right to the very beginning of your answer when you're like, it's probably going to be Leclerc. And while I agree with you, I mean, this is an interesting year for Vettel, who obviously is probably approaching this year looking to go for the title. I'd be amazed if he wasn't. But I think this is the first year we're going to see him stay in a team with a teammate having been beaten by that teammate. So we're going to be able to see if he can step it up and rise to the challenge of Leclerc, or whether this is going to give us the idea that, okay, well, Vettel's on the wane now. Vettel's tapering out, and it's the end of his, his peak has gone, and he's sort of moving towards the end of his career. But you're right. I would like to see some hotshot new driver come in and suddenly blow everyone else away, which is what Hamilton did 13 years ago. God, which is rare. But talking about different eras and different contexts of F1, we sort of can now get these very, very talented drivers in very, very young. If you put them in a good car, why can't they go for the title? I mean, Leclerc was winning races for Ferrari in his second season. Max Verstappen winning races very early on, right up the top of the championship table. They're in their early 20s. They could be racing till their 40s. Both of them could be breaking Hamilton's records. Who knows?
We've got a lot of talent out there, haven't we? That's the exciting thing. We kind of touched on it earlier, and I think at the minute we're looking at Leclerc, Verstappen, but where does Norris fit in? Where does Norris fit into there? And Russell, and your science is getting better. I think we've got a really good era coming through, and I think we'll look back at 2019, 2020 as 2 massively significant years, like we do 97, 2007 with Lewis Hamilton and drivers like that. You go back through history, Michael Schumacher's debut. We've talked about him, obviously. I think we're going to look back. I'm not comparing those drivers to those. Obviously, I'm just saying I think we'll look at this significant for the future, definitely. A couple of missed actually earlier, by the way, Super Chats. Apologies. It's just updating on Streamlabs now. Duali said, good morning, Sean and Stuart. We are still morning, so good morning to you too. That was at 9:15. And Lord Uzik also asking about the bingo and said also have fun during testing. Thank you for your contribution. Sorry I missed those earlier, but yes, they've just updated on Streamlabs, so there we go. I'll run through the order in about 11 minutes, so about 15 because I'll forget. But yes, very. How would you? I suppose when we're talking about the future, Verstappen versus Leclerc. There's been this. A question that always got through at me in the early days of this channel were, and I say it's only like 2.5 years ago, but you know what I mean. The early days of the channel was, when's Verstappen going to win the title? Will Verstappen be the next world champion? And at that point, yeah, you think, well, yeah, it's got to be Verstappen. Who's going to be the next new world champion? You know, who's coming through? You're thinking it's got to be Verstappen, but now we've got Leclerc.
Yeah,
and I think that's made it really tough to call. And I'm not sure. I mean, I can imagine how Max Verstappen fans will feel if Leclerc beats him to being the first new world champion, if you like. But I'm not sure how I'd feel about that. I kind of feel like nobody has a right to a championship, but Max has been around for a while. He's still like 12, and I feel like we've been talking about it for about 30 years, which is mathematically impossible, of course. But I don't know if it would feel right. As stupid as it sounds, with all these years, if we talk about Verstappen as the next new champion, and in comes Leclerc and goes, "Hey, no, I'm having it. It's mine." But I'd probably argue, we're going to talk about the championship, I'm sure, over the next 6 days. But I wouldn't be totally surprised to see Leclerc win the title this year. Although I do think Red Bull might. My gut right now is telling me Red Bull is springing a surprise. But let's get into that later.
Yeah, I think a lot of preseason testing and before we get to the first race, there's a lot of gut, a gut talk, which sometimes is right and sometimes is wrong. It's really hard to place where you get these sort of feelings from, and some of it's from experience and places you can't say. Yeah, I mean, they're definitely both contenders for this year's title, at least on paper, and if everything goes according to plan. I mean, I know we get caught out by things happening in testing and by our expectations. I would like to add, beyond this year, there are just so many more questions, and we've been caught out. Like it's easy to sort of expect kind of tweaks on the status quo, that like the top 3 teams now are going to remain the top 3 teams. But whether it's a slow change or like a sudden, here comes a new challenger moment, you know, the landscape of who's dominating F1 will change. And what I would hate to see is Red Bull and Ferrari go through a period of you know, being a bit in the doldrums and having locked in what may be the best 2 drivers in the sport, unable to achieve their potential. You know, like you don't have to go back that far for the top 3 to be sort of you know, McLaren, Renault, Ferrari, and you know, maybe Williams, and those teams are all over the place now. They're not they're not locked into winning races every race. So in through the 20s, you know, we could see a major reshuffle. Renault come back to the top. We could see Williams spring a surprise. Maybe McLaren can pull something back, and then you know, Red Bull, who, you know, I don't know how long they're going to hang on to Adrian Newey, but in the post Newey era, will they be able to like continue to develop at the pace they do now? So I guess my point is, yeah, you know, Max Verstappen and Charles Leclerc might be the ones to usurp Hamilton, but if not this year, we have no idea who will be in a position to capitalize. Like you say, Schwartzman could come in and join a team that's currently in the midfield, but have managed to, you know, make the best of the new rules and be in a position to win races every race. You don't, you know, it could be 2007 all over again.
John T in chat. Good morning, mate. I've seen you about. John T joining me tomorrow morning on stream. Said, "Oi, Chamber, hands off my Williams optimism." That's not a euphemism. I'm going to read some of these. I don't know if I should because I don't. They're people that aren't following me, so I don't think they're meaning to use the hashtag.
Nonetheless.
I think they think the W means winter or something, but every car seems stable apart from the Mercedes. It could just be Bottas pushing the car, but it seems really unstable in the final chicane, says Leon Bentley. If you watch
I've noticed that as well. But Bottas has been the back end has been all over the place through the chicanes. Very wiggly.
AlphaTauri apparently had a software problem, but that's been solved quickly. Some people complain about F1 TV Pro not working properly. Surprise!
Nothing we can do about that.
What a surprise that the first engine to have problems is a Honda. Have we missed that?
I think that must be the AlphaTauri software problems.
Oh, maybe, yeah. I know this guy's following me, Daniel Philpott. He also runs me off the road on the F1 game. You swine. Said, will we ever see Stoffel in F1 again? Of course, multiple world champion in the waiting. Mm-hmm. What do I do, Stuart, from an impartiality point of view if Stoffel Van Dorn returns to F1? I've got to be really harsh on him, aren't I?
I don't know if you have to be that impartial.
Nah. I am relatively. I don't. People. Oh, who's your favourite driver? I don't really have one. There's not anybody I really dislike. But I am at the point now where I kind of just say what I'm thinking, which is getting me in trouble at the moment a lot. But I don't see the point in trying to be balanced, trying to keep everyone happy. Because what is? I think they're saying something like trying to please everybody, you'll end up pleasing nobody, or something like that. So
yeah. I've always thought. I mean, I try and be similar. You've made very clear you have drivers who prefer over other drivers, but you're still, when it comes to analysis, you've been pretty fair about it. Like, I've always been a fan of Daniel Ricciardo, but I know when he's had a bad day.
Yeah.
And hopefully I'll know when it's time for him to retire. Not soon, but, you know.
Do you think from obviously it's been, if you're on F1 Twitter, it's been a rough winter on F1 Twitter. It's been pretty terrible over there. But I think there is a difference, just my personal view. I think there is a difference between a fan of a driver and a fanboy or fangirl of a driver. I think you can be like, I do like Verstappen, but then there is Verstappen can do no wrong. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I think that's absolutely right. That's the fine line between the two. And yeah, I find Verstappen incredibly exciting, and I'm really, really, you know, I'm thrilled that we've got a whole era of Verstappen ahead of us. We're just at the beginning of what he's going to be able to do. But also, sometimes he's a bit too aggressive. Sometimes he's a bit too, petulant outside of the cockpit. He's got they're little things, I think he can improve on. And some days he won't have left enough room. Same with Leclerc, really. I think Leclerc's personality is very different from Verstappen, but sometimes on track he will misjudge things.
You know what's? I said this a lot last season. What's really struck me this last year with Max, is his maturity suddenly. And what I mean is, I know we had that thing in Mexico where he made comments, but after that had all kicked off, he came out and said, "I shouldn't have said that." Yeah. Now, Max Verstappen, 18 months, 2 years ago, would not have done that. He would have been like, "I said what I said," and I think that was a good example of how much he's matured. And I think I still go back to, and I think he's admitted it now, but at the time, you remember crashing FP3 in Monaco in 2018, and he'd been involved in like 6 races or 6 race weekends and 6 incidents. And people saying, you need to change. Do you need to change your driving style? And he was saying, "Oh, no, I'm not changing what I'm doing. I'm not changing what I'm doing." And then from the very next race, he went on that really good run. And I think that start to 2018 was a catalyst for the Verstappen we've got now. I'm not saying he's not still hot-headed. Of course he is. I think most drivers are. He's going to make mistakes. There are going to be crashes. He's going to say stupid things. Every driver does. But he's definitely come on leaps and bounds since that really shaky start to 2018, when people were actually suggesting he should be dropped to Toro Rosso, let's not forget.
Oh, yeah.
I think I've been impressed with him. And I've warmed to him. I didn't dislike him before, but I always thought he was just this young hothead and needed to be reined in. Whereas now I'm like, how can I word it? Like he feels like he's a. Oh, this is so condescending, and I don't mean it to. It feels like he's a proper grown-up F1 driver now. I hope that points people get what I mean
No,
by
I mean
that.
he's gone through a period of maturity and probably reflection and maybe some coaching.
Yeah,
But he has gone from a period where he would, and I empathise with this massively as a human being. People criticise you, you dig your heels in, and refuse to concede that you were wrong or will do anything differently. And perhaps behind the scenes, either by himself or with other people, he kind of got to a point where he can be like, okay, I'm going to learn from this. I'm going to try sort of move forward and maybe just sort of, and he doesn't have to do it out loud. And he doesn't have to do it, he could still be a bit stubborn in interviews or whatever, but he's clearly taking a breath more, I think. And that's definitely shown in both his driving style and how he behaves out of the car. And that's good to see. And I do give drivers a lot of benefit of the doubt for what they do in the car, because I know that they're like amped up to all hell and adrenaline's veins, and they may be a bit more aggressive in their car body language, but also in how they shout down the radio, scream and swear and stuff. I think that's not you at your base level. That's you at your full, just raw emotion. I give them less benefit of the doubt when they get out of the car and they've had an hour to cool down and they're still like free. So I think that's a lot of the difference with Max, is that he's a bit more, he's a bit calmer, and he's taking a breath both in the car and out of the car.
yeah. We've got an hour to go, Stuart.
Nice.
I'll do the order quickly, and then I did see a couple of comments and I can't find them now. One was a cheeky plug saying, let's help get this guy to 100k. I don't know where we are. We were 88,000 something this morning, so we are on the brink of me being able to go #road to 100k. Let's do it. I'm not even kidding. That is it doesn't matter. Subs are amazing. They don't really matter. It's the views that matter on YouTube. But from a personal perspective, that number, it seems to be taking forever to do this last 12k, whereas the first 88 seemed to go by really quickly. And now I'm just like checking it every 6 minutes. Like, come on, guys, come on. It's just, the sooner it's done, and then I can stop obsessing about it, and I can, anyway, like I say, it doesn't matter. It really doesn't. But yeah.
But if you're listening and you're not subscribed, what are you doing?
Yeah.
You're missing out.
Yeah. What are you doing? No, literally, tell us what you're up to. No, and what are we having for lunch today? I'll have a think about that. I'll go through the timing and then we'll discuss lunch. Don't worry. Valtteri Bottas is currently fastest. The sandbags are off again. 17.313. That joke's going to get boring. 59 laps on the board. Sergio Perez only just second. 117.375. 39 laps on the board. They are on the C3s. I think that is how that's working. Verstappen 17.7, Sainz on 18.0, both them on a harder compounder tyre. 71 laps for Max, 54 for Sainz. So Max getting pretty close to the tally for most laps run first session last year, if he's not been already. Ocon 5th on 40 laps, 18.0. Leclerc 6th, 18.308, 44 laps, 52 laps for Russell in, deep breath, P7, 118.4. It's only testing, but it's not often we see a George Russell or a Williams, a George Russell. Russell Racing in 7th place. Kevin Magnussen in 8th and 18.4, 40 laps for him. Robert Kubica 119.8, 36 laps for him. And Daniel Kvyat a 120.1 on 36 laps. And then we've got Latifi, Hamilton, Vettel, Stroll and Giovinazzi and Ricciardo in the cars this afternoon. So I'm not quite sure I'm going to do this table because it's not going to fit in there, all those drivers. But you might just have to deal with a top 10 or a top 13, I'm afraid. I'll have to keep updating you on that one. But yes, that is your order at the moment. Kubica. I was just thinking about Kubica. What was I was going to say something? Yeah, he's only in this morning for this week, but I do wonder, Stuart, if he'll get another session. You'd think he'd maybe get a morning or an afternoon next week. I can't imagine. Yeah, I think Orlen. What's this? Orlen. Yeah, I can't see their sponsor being happy with one morning, and I think he's got some FP1 sessions this year as well. So I think we've got to see him again next week, surely. Probably early in the week, because I want to get Magnussen and Grosjean as many laps as possible on Thursday and Friday, I thought.
Yeah, I think it's good getting him in early because I'm assuming, you know, his value lies in his experience and being able to sort of, if he gets in early, he understands what the baseline of the car is. All the feedback is in from the younger drivers. He can help interpret and he'll understand where that's coming from. And be useful in that sort of development and understanding in terms of bridging the gap between driver and engineer. So if he is in next week, have they released the schedule for next week? If he is in next week, I assume he'll be in just as early.
I've not seen a schedule for next. I've only seen the F1 word schedule pinned on my Twitter page.
Sure.
We've got 3 mornings of this next week, Stuart. Me and you talking nonsense. I'm looking forward to it. Not that I'm not looking forward to having everybody else on, of course. But yeah, I quite like the morning sessions.
Yeah, I got up and everything. I was wide awake.
I saw your message in Discord and you were like, I'm awake. And I was like, oh, I'm glad somebody is.
Yeah.
Can you stream? I'll be there in an hour.
I haven't had any Red Bull or anything. Last year I was just pounding the Red Bull to just make sure I was fine. But it's just exciting seeing the cars on the track. I can't get over this Renault. It's so ugly. The front end of that Renault. Every time I see it on the track.
They're just showing a testing classification on screen. That's not the session over, is it, for the morning? No, there's another hour. Maybe just doing a little update.
54 minutes left.
But yeah, Valtteri Bottas quickest. Perez, Verstappen, Sainz, Ocon, Leclerc, Russell, Magnussen, Kubica, and Kvyat. So it looks like, right, I know this doesn't matter, but from a visual point of view, when you're watching on telly this year, it looks like Williams are getting the Toro Rosso blue from last year, and AlphaTauri are getting the Williams white from last year on those little lines on the side. Breaking news.
Oh, yeah. Good point. The where is Alf? Oh, yeah. Yeah, no, I agree. Did Williams... I thought Williams had the blue last year. I guess not.
No, they had the white. Toro Rosso with the blue. That blue as well, I think, funnily enough.
Yeah.
But yeah, there you go. And there's Ferrari. I know your stream might be behind, but there's Ferrari. Obviously, no screens allowed in testing this year. So they've got, what's that, 4, 5, 6 mechanics stood in front of the car. So human screens.
I mean, I always prefer not having screens, but having them removed finally from testing is great because you see them come in. And if they haven't been running for a while, you can actually have an idea of what the hell's going on, which part of the car they're focusing on, because they have to show themselves to the world. And if you're a much more skilled engineer, you can actually look at all the bits inside the car.
The thing is, as well,
assuming there's not 5 people standing in front of it.
Yeah, but if you're going to stream it on TV, you've got to open the garages up. Surely you can't, because otherwise you're just staring at a screen for a lot of the session. Yes, we don't get a lot of action on track, do we? So I'm glad they've done it. Really, really glad. It would never have happened in Bernie's day. No way. They were so restrictive with testing back then, and Liberty have done, for all the criticism they've got, they've done a great job at opening it up on social media and that. So yes, very pleased to see the screens go. George Russell out there on the C4. On numbers, actually, Crofty was moaning about this at the start of the coverage. I'm not sure. I like the way they're displaying the 63.
It is weird.
On the engine cover, it just looks like a 6 because the 3 kind of gets lost.
Yeah. At least, wait, what is Latifi's number? I forgot.
6. He's got Rosberg 6. Too soon.
Oh, that's in which case that's incredibly annoying.
Yes. Oh, of course, yeah.
I was going to say, oh well, at least the other car didn't know what the car was. Okay. Yeah.
Let's just get a side shot of it now as it comes through. I mean, you can see there's another number there, so I suppose that's what you're going to have to do is like 6 and something will be George Russell, whereas just 6 is going to be Latifi.
Well, Latifi's in the car later today, isn't he? So I guess we'll be able to see if he has a white 6, then that'll make it more obvious. If his 6 is in the style of the 3 from 3, then yeah.
Apparently, Greg James didn't show up for Radio 1 after the Brit Awards drama on this Wednesday.
Oh, right.
Sorry, I was reading the comment in chat. I was like, I didn't realise it was. I didn't even know. Were the Brits on yesterday?
Was there a drama?
I didn't even know it was the Brits. When was that?
We're so cool.
I know. I was sipping tea and watching Terminator Dark Fate last night.
Oh, yeah.
Good film.
The third best Terminator film.
I mean, I'd read that it was seen as the natural successor to the second one, but the fact that they, spoiler alert, did what they did, actually I won't say it because people haven't seen it, but did what they did kind of highlights the fact that it is the third film, not the natural successor. It is just the third film.
Yeah, they just pretend all the other films didn't happen.
Yeah. Cool. It was a good film. I enjoyed it for anybody who cares. I want to rent Joker as well. I don't go to the cinema, Stuart. How terrible is that? I just wait for him to come out on Sky or whatever and download them for a tenner. It's cheaper than the cinema.
I do like the cinema, though. We've gone wildly off topic. They do F1 in cinema sometimes, don't they? I've never been to that. But
Well, you say off topic. Fofo Kashi says, are you excited about the new season of the Netflix F1 series?
Yes. Good segue.
More than I could possibly say right now. Can I say?
Can you say? Are you in it?
Things. If they use it, I will be in the Williams episode.
Ooh.
It's only up to 15 seconds of audio from a video. They've said they're going to use it. And they've paid me to use it.
That's incredibly
You would not believe the amount of money you can get for 15 seconds of audio. They've paid me to use it. But I'm also aware that there have been plenty of actors in the past paid a lot more than me who have then not been used in films. So I'm kind of like one of those, until I hear it, I'm not quite going to believe it.
Well, I'm very excited. I'm going to binge through that as soon as that comes out.
That's what I'm doing next Friday morning, straight to the Williams episode. Have they used it? And then you will know from my mood when I come on stream. But that's a little exclusive. I've kept that quiet for about 6 weeks.
Exclusive. I'm talking to a movie star. You didn't.
First YouTube, then Netflix, then the world.
Wow. There you go.
Yeah.
You heard it
so I am very
People
excited
who
for Drive
got
to
up
Survive.
and listen to the stream, get that exclusive information.
And because I've bought you exclusive, hit that subscribe button.
Yeah. Because you're now subscribing to a Netflix star.
Yeah. Hell yeah. But yeah.
Very cool. I can't wait to hear that, assuming it's in.
I'm looking, in all seriousness though, I am really looking forward to the Netflix series because I like the first one. So...
Yeah, it was good. Definitely something to binge while we carry on with our work. Although, yeah, now you have to do 8 hours of streaming first.
Yeah, very true. I'll be flicking forward to see if they've used the audio they said they were going to use, and then what I'll do is I'll finish 6 days of testing, and then I'll sit over the weekend and just watch Drive to Survive.
Good.
That's my plan for the weekend.
Perfect way to spend the weekend.
So just because I'll be bored of F1 by that point, I'm going to watch some F1. I've got to be honest. People say to me all the time, "What are your hobbies?" And I'm like, "F1." They're like, "No, what else?" I'm like, "F1." That is my life.
It's 22 races. What else you got time for?
Exactly. But yeah, absolutely. I love F1. I'd never. It's one of those people like, oh, I'm bored. I see it all the time on social media. I'm bored. I'm never going to watch it anymore. And I'm like, I'd never get to a point where I'd never watch F1. It's been 28 years I've been watching.
Wow,
that's a lot. That's 3 decades of my life put into Formula One. I ain't throwing it away now.
You know what? I've been watching slightly less than you, but I keep thinking like there are people who haven't been alive as long as I've been watching F1 who watch my channel and your channel.
Oh, I know. How old? You just feel so old, don't you? They're like, oh, it's like, oh, wait, I've been watching F1 a long time. When did you start watching? Oh, 2013. How old are you? What? Oh, God. So, yeah. I was a wee boy when I started watching. Yes, since I was, will it be 5? Jamal? Yeah, 86 to something like that. 7. 5, 4. Oh, my God. 6 or 7 would have been. I can't remember to work that out. Let's move on from maths.
Okay.
Yes. I will take some comments from chat. We did this last year, didn't we? We got to like the last hour and realised we'd used up everything.
Congratulate you. You've nearly made it 3 hours. Your stream.
I've nearly done what?
You've nearly gone 3 hours without your stream being taken down by.
Oh, don't say that. I'm going to have a nightmare this afternoon, aren't I? I'm like, Dan, shut up, mate. It's been taken down. I won't lose my rag like I did last year because it was. I'm going to say this. You should never on Twitter at a social media team and have a go at them. It is not their fault.
Yeah.
I got a message from somebody after that who I didn't realise was on the F1 social media team that was essentially just, can you not swear at me? This isn't my fault. And I was like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. I didn't even realise it was you. Yeah.
But, yeah. I actually, not to jinx it with positive talk, I had a chat with the F1, someone who helps run F1 digital side, and they've like very much trying to not take down people who are just doing stuff in the F1 community, like legitimately.
The annoying thing last year, and I said this to you a lot because I think I had a proper rant at you, didn't I, at one point, was that it's when it says footage manually detected. It's like, well, no person has clicked on this video. It's not manually detected because if it was manually detected, they would see timing screen, photos, permission for everything. Literally everything in this stream I have permission to use, right down to the font. For God's sake, I've gone that far this year. So yeah, I don't like the way YouTube operates. But yes, should we get back to F1?
F1.
Yeah, Formula One. It's this thing, cars or something like that.
44 minutes to go.
Yes. What we got? Still Bottas top. So there you go. Bottas 3.0 is here. Let's not do that this year. Perez on board with Perez. Nice. I get to watch a bit of on board now. I've got to be honest, not much of the TV, considering it's being streamed all day. But as somebody said the other day, the problem with testing is we'll all love it for day one, watching it on TV, but we like FP1 in Australia, where we all get up to watch it, and then you don't bother with FP2 because it's just the same old. But Perez through the first couple of corners. Nice. Looks good on board. Have they moved the camera?
I'm not there yet, but I'm assuming it looks great. I'm still with the Alpha.
Just when you get there, I'm just wondering if they have, because they were on about moving that camera, weren't they, with the halo? I don't know if they have. It seemed a little bit offset to the left.
Yeah, I'm there now.
Versus last year. Whether that's the Mickey Mouse is.
It's never dead center, is it?
No.
Yeah, I think the Mickey Mouse ears are like probably infrared cameras. That are used by the team to sort of look at heat stuff. So this must be the T cam on the top. Maybe moved a bit. I think I can't see much difference.
It might be because I'm sat on my head at an angle. As stupid as it sounds, I've just realised I'm sat here looking sideways. Of course it's moved then, Sean. But if you look in front of Perez there, they've got like a camera or a sensor in the halo, which I hadn't noticed last year. I'm hoping that's a proper camera. So we can get some.
I'm seeing one.
Yeah, there's two. There's one at the bottom, isn't there? This is great radio commentary.
Yeah. So where the T-bar of the halo comes down, there's one at the bottom where it meets the chassis, and there's one sort of at the top where the middle of the halo is. Both looking back at the driver. That's what we're seeing. That's what you're seeing, right?
Yeah. Or I was. Oh, there we go. Back now.
Yeah.
But I'm hoping that, because can you imagine that camera in Singapore, clear visors? That would be so good. That would be so good.
Do you think we're going to get some of the helmet cams that Formula E have been using pretty successfully this year? Where there's a camera like bedded into the foam lining of the helmets.
They look like driver's eye, don't they?
Yeah.
I'm not sure if they'll officially use them, but some of the videos on YouTube from some of the teams have shown driver's eye. Where they've got the cameras in the helmets, but I don't know if they're just something stuck on like we've had in the past. But I like the Formula E driver's eye cameras, but if they're on too long, you get a bit of motion sickness. I've got to be honest, it's a bit like, whoa.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that would be a great thing for Formula One, just to get a bit closer to the drivers, or as close as they're ever going to get. As they're just focusing now on the Red Bull's Darth Vader nose, or Darth Vader stub.
Yeah, it is a weird looking thing, isn't it? Which we're not going to see next year because the nose is right down to the wing. There's going to be no.
Yeah.
Although God knows what scope there is in the regulations to mess about with that.
Do we know why the Racing Point, Renault and Alpha haven't done a lap yet? The ones at the... Oh, no, they're not in until this afternoon.
That's right.
Those drivers, yeah. Everybody's done laps. Anyone that hasn't done laps, they're not in the car yet. They're in this afternoon. It's just the timing screens letting everyone know who's in when. So yes,
Yeah.
they have done laps. A lot of laps, actually. What was...
Williams have done the second highest number of laps after Verstappen.
Yeah, 61. Yeah, wow.
So their car is working.
That's all that matters. 71 for Verstappen as well. Did you say, was it 73 or 74 you said was the most for this shift last year?
I had opened. It was about that. Let me just open it up again.
I don't have this information, but I've got so many windows open.
So Vettel did 72 last year. That was the highest amount. And then 69 for Mercedes, 65 for Renault, and then sort of a bunch of 50s and 40s.
So we've got Bottas in the pits. He could still top that 69. Way. And Verstappen's out on track, so it looks like he's going to go over that. So that's a great start for Red Bull. Obviously, if you're new to Formula One, you know, the times, they're fine and all that. But really, early stages of testing, it's about that number on the right, the number of laps. They are so important. So,
yeah, it's data.
Exactly. 169 most on day one by one driver, says James Howe in the chat. So we'll keep an eye on that. I can remember 169. But yeah.
And let's not forget, last year, the morning session, Haas only got 18 laps on the table. Do you remember they took a few days to actually get some momentum going?
So did Racing Point, didn't they?
Yeah, they're very tentative. What a Racing Point. Yeah, Racing Point, 20 laps in the first morning last year. So they were both struggling.
So,
but this year everyone's off to a good start.
Do you think this is this is the whole evolution, not revolution thing showing now, in that the cars are probably pretty close to last year's cars, just with a few updates on them, and so reliability isn't going to be an issue like it may have been last year, and there aren't going to be concerns over the front wing because there's been no changes there, major changes. Do you know why they're getting the laps in now, or is it just that they're more organised this year, maybe?
I mean, that's a
difficult question, isn't it?
Yeah, it is a difficult question.
Put you right on the spot.
I think, despite seeing so much running, like testing is one of the most opaque parts of Formula One. Like, as I'm sure you'll be repeating every single time you do a stream, like there's so many variables going on. I honestly don't know why they managed to get. I suppose, yeah, Racing Point in particular, they did, you know, a back foot, and a bit slower in developing their 2019 car. So yeah, but Haas can't really explain. They never did really explain why they were doing such a poor job getting going last year, did they?
Alex Jakes, first of all, great to hear him in the commentary.
Yes.
I love that guy. But just pointing out there, we've got 37 minutes to go, and it has been solid running.
Yeah.
There's been no red flags, knock on wood. So that could be why the laps are so high, because they're not stopping and starting. They're just out there putting the laps in as Verstappen locks up and goes wide at the hairpin. Doesn't really matter, but he's on 73 laps. There we go. He's beaten that time now, or that lap count from last year.
Just, last year there were 2 red flags at the... There you go. Yeah, I'm slightly behind you. I'm just hearing the uninterrupted running. Yeah, there were 2 red flags last year. One of them was the Romain Grosjean spinning out with a fuel pressure problem.
WTF1 tweeting, best looking car on track. Anybody got an idea? I mean, I have to be honest, I've not really been watching the track action, considering it's been, I've been busy waffling to you and keeping an eye on chat and whatnot, but that's the trouble with these streams.
I haven't had a chance to ask you, what do you think of the sort of burgundy additions to the Mercedes? I don't really like them, but I know some people do.
First of all, I think we have to decide what the colour is. I got somebody in comments telling people it's not red, it's cherry.
Okay, well,
cherry, which is officially defined as a shade of red.
We're not painting a house here.
I think the candy apple maroon looked awful in that reveal they did on the Monday. But I think the problem was there. Number one, you had the terrible lighting. Number two, as somebody else pointed out, you had that gaudy carpet.
Yeah.
Even my nan had more taste than that. I mean, come on. bloody tradition in this country sometimes. Anyway, let's not get into that. Move on quickly. But yeah, I think on track it definitely looks better. But I'm kind of looking at it. I think a few people said in the comment section, the red is there because of Nicky. It's not there because of Nicky. It's there because of the new sponsor. However, I am going to look at it as the red is there for Nicky because it just makes it more bearable.
To get through it. Sorry, I was just watching a very flappy Red Bull. Yeah, okay. If you want to frame it as a works.
Like the airbox is his cap, is what some people are saying.
Yeah, let's go with that. I think...
But that's not Nicky red cap.
I think the colour sort of can complement the turquoise, but I feel like it's just been like splodged on without much thought. Is my problem with it.
It does.
Do you remember when Renault / Lotus were doing their black and gold livery, but Total and their yellow livery, to be honest, and Total insisted on just having the red and not blending in like every other sponsor, and they were just like these awful red wing mirrors and like wing end plates. It just didn't work at all with the rest of the livery. I think considering how good Mercedes liveries are, they could have done a better job at blending that all together.
It just... I know it wasn't, or I assume it wasn't, but it does... I said it in the video at the time, it does just feel like Ineos, or whatever they're called, turned up on the Monday, went, we'd like to sponsor your car, and Toto went, oh, guys, you need to put some red on there. That's what it feels like.
Yeah.
Sorry, Candy Apple Maroon.
Candy Apple Maroon. A sort of, yeah. It does feel very last minute.
I'm less against it with the car on track. That is a very flappy Red Bull with the DRS open.
Yes, that's what I thought I was seeing things, but it's not very stable, is it?
So the back end stepping out massive, and then we're watching a replay of Checo. Sorry, that's not Lance Stroll, that's Sergio Perez, isn't it?
I mean, I'm going to have to tell you in about 40 seconds, but sure.
Perez, it said Stroll on the screen, but Stroll is in the car this afternoon. That's Perez locking up and going wide at, I think, turn 5.
It should be really easy to get your graphics right when there's one driver in it.
Yeah. I wonder why that's flappy then on the Red Bull.
Yeah. I mean, that's going to be something that's not allowed for real running.
You'll like this, Stuart. When you get to the I'm saying Perez because it is Perez. When you get to his shot, there's no screens allowed in testing, but you can always make your fan that goes in the airbox ridiculously big. You'll see that in a second. It is massive.
It's stuff like this that makes me concerned, as we were talking earlier, about the cost cap rule, because you see a loophole. I see it. I'm watching it. Completely blind.
Yeah. Oh, but we need all that there, for no reason.
Oh God.
I'll put some new pictures in now while I'm. I was going to ask a question. It's completely gone.
Well, it's all right because you're coming up on the half hour in a minute.
Oh yes, thank God for that. But yeah, I'm just looking at some of the pictures that have been sent from GP today. That nose is horrible on that Renault. It is ugly, isn't it? It really is.
Maybe they could style it out once they put the final livery on. Actually, I was just going to say, I thought I might as well describe what's happening with that Red Bull, the flappiness, seeing as no one else can see what it's on. When the DRS is open, the flapped up bit of the wing is just sort of, how would you call it? Fluttering about under full speed.
Yeah.
It's not stable or steady.
Soaring majestically like a candy wrapper in an updraft, as Homer Simpson would say.
Exactly like that.
It's not. I mean, it won't be legal. But the cars don't have to be legal in testing. In practice, they do. I got that wrong last year, but they don't have to in testing.
I don't know whether that extends to the. See, it's something I need to double check because I wound myself in circles about this. Because you can stick on weird arrows in practice, can't you?
Yeah.
Even
I think it's still got to be legal, hasn't it?
Yeah. So yeah, very confusing. Anyway, yes, they can. They don't have to be completely legal competitive cars, but obviously you want to be testing the legal bits.
I was just going to say, it's kind of you can run, in theory you could turn up and run an aeroplane if you wanted to, but it's entirely pointless because number one, I mean, why would you? I suppose is the first point, but secondly, you know, you're not going to be able to take that to Australia with you unless you're using it to get there, of course. So it's kind of irrelevant running it. But yeah, I'm just trying to get some pictures in, just a couple of extra ones that have been sent. The Williams with a fence through it. It's not, you know, that's not as bad as. Can you remember last year we were doing these and Kubica was out there? I think the fence was about 2 or 3 times the size. It looked insane.
Yeah, clearly trying to do 2 weeks worth of testing in one day.
I'm really pleased. I know we've said it a lot, but I'm really pleased they are on time and they're getting the laps in, and their times are, as far as they can be in testing, they're all right. So,
yeah, do you think we'll be able to, we'll be back to like 2018 Williams, still 10th, but able to grab more points opportunities, not being a second off at every single qualifying?
I would hope so. Like I said, I think they will still be 10th. I don't think they're suddenly going to make any leap up. But if they can, let's go off last year's championship, for example. If they can take the fight to 9th place Haas and just be somewhere near them in races, I think that's progress, isn't it? Watching Bottas getting it all wrong at the final chicane, very wide on the exit there, hitting the curb a bit hard. But yeah, I think 10th but closer to the midfield. But that's got to be their target, surely. They're not going to find all that time without major rule changes. I still think next year, I was going to talk about this earlier, I still think next year, if I were in Williams' position, write off is probably the wrong phrase, but I'd already have 1.5 eye or eyes on next year and half an eye on this year.
They are in the best position to be able to do that. They need, if they've got that road kit sponsorship locked down and an open dialogue with them about 2020 is going to be a bit of a ropey year, but just you wait. Then yeah, I think they definitely need a good place to do that. My qualms with writing off a year too early is that you still need to convince sponsors that you're the real deal.
Yeah, especially a team like Williams.
Yeah, but if they're, if Rocket know what's going on and they're happy for Williams to build to 2021, then that works for them, and hopefully they won't disappear the way that Martini did as soon as things went a bit off the boil.
Riley, yes, I can certainly do that. Riley C says, can I suggest a timer graphic at the top of the screen so we can see how much long is left in the sessions? I can do that for the afternoon. Absolutely, won't take a second to set that up. I can do that, no worries. Good point. We've got 27 minutes left though for those that are interested. So I never even thought about a timer graphic. It's a very good idea. Riley C, you're in charge of graphics. I'd say Bloomy's in charge of graphics, but he's too busy sticking liveries on Star Wars vehicles at the minute. So if you've not seen it, definitely go check him out. Yes,
they are gorgeous.
Did you see his Renault TIE Fighter thing?
Oh, yeah. So good, really, really good.
If you're here, Bloomy, can I put them in the stream very quickly? I think you said a couple for the he says, oi. Yeah, he's here. Are you all right if I nick them, Bloomy? You can tell me no. It's fine. Somebody said, you're going to lose Bloomy to an F1 team. I was like, I'll fight you for him. It's as simple as that. I absolutely will. He's a star. Deserves a lot more recognition. I was going to say a lot more than he's getting, but he's had a lot over the last few days, actually. So, and deserved that. I think it was Will Buxton that suggested the idea. And I was like, get on it. Get on it, Lewis. And he did, so yeah. I will super quickly, for people that don't know what I'm talking about, we'll go image one. So honestly, these end up such a mess. So this is the TIE Interceptor, I think it is, rather than TIE Fighter that he did. Giving him a cheeky plug, but that is just
gorgeous.
I mean, that's incredible. That's the first one. Fantastic stuff. I'm a big Star Wars fan anyway. So, putting the two things I really love together is just brilliant.
While you're doing that, someone asked the question in the chat. I'm trying to look it up. So I don't know if you know the answer to this. Like someone was asking how the tire management works in terms of, when you go to a race, the teams ask Pirelli for whichever compounds they want, and Pirelli bring them. But did Pirelli just bring like an absolute ton of every compound, and teams just help themselves like a pick and mix?
I think so for testing. Yeah, I think they've got free reign. That's your AT, by the way. But yeah, I think they get pretty much free reign in testing. Don't quote me on that. I'll have a look in the lunch break, but I'm sure it is. So,
yeah. Let's not forget, this is also the last year we're getting these big fat tires. We're going to 18-inch rims next year. Probably going to some more testing of those at some point in the year.
I tell you what, it's I know you couldn't make it to Autosport this year, but they had the new tyres there and the wheels and that. They look absolutely awesome in person. In the flesh, they look so good. But also, again, in the flesh, when you see them next to this year's tyres, I'm so glad they're going 18-inch rims. I really am. They look so good and low profile as well.
Yeah.
So, yeah. I'm looking forward to
it.
A
lot of people, let's say skeptical, polite about it, because I think having these big fat squishy tires is part of the characteristic as F1. And I guess F2 and F3 and all that. But as well as being sort of a bit more relevant to most types of tires, it's going to have a massive effect on next year's cars and the way cars are designed, because of the way they currently absorb a lot of the suspension travel. And the new cars are going to have to completely design the way their suspension works in order to do what the tires currently do, because they're going to be a lot stiffer. So again, another reason to think that the order might be shaken up somewhat, because we're looking at completely different designs around how the tires and road interact. I'll be interested to see when they start testing these 18-inch rims more. I'm assuming the Abu Dhabi test will be all of that, but they will be on different cars. They won't be integrated into the 2021 chassis. So there's going to be a lot of question marks. I mean, I'm already really looking forward to this year, because we've got no idea what's going to happen.
It's going back to what I said earlier, isn't it? Although I'm really looking forward to this season, because I think it could be a really brilliant one, it does feel like we're just waiting now for next year.
Yeah.
And I kind of feel bad saying that, because I think we are in for a good season. I think you've got, in theory, the top three should be closer, because, for Mercedes, the law of diminishing returns. So that means that in theory, Ferrari and Red Bull should close up. Then you've got the midfield that should tighten up, even though that was bloody close last year anyway. Williams, they've got the most to gain of anyone, so you'd expect them to make a big step forward. Are McLaren and Renault and whatnot going to get a little bit closer to the top three? I think we could have a really good season. That being said, it could be dull as hell, and we are waiting for 2021. It's Formula. You just never know what you're going to get, do you? That's the trouble with Formula One. But I tell you something I am going to stress right now this year. I am not reading. I mean, I've never really read anything into testing, but I'm reading nothing into anything but lap count this year, because we all, even though I said in our previous stream that I had a gut feeling Mercedes were going to dominate, everybody thought Ferrari, or a lot of people, I don't think it's fair to say everybody, a lot of people, including experts at places like Autosport, reckon that Ferrari were comfortably the team to beat. And they weren't. So I'm not going to get too excited about whatever we see here, because based on what we have at the moment, it's looking like it's Mercedes versus Racing Point for the title.
Can you imagine if that turned out to be the case, though?
Oh, imagine the conspiracy theories around that, though.
God, yeah. Well, they basically got the same car now, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Ferrari sitting in 7th with Leclerc at the moment, on lap time. But also haven't actually put in as many laps as the other teams. I know it's a matter of, 15 laps, seen the most in the last number of laps. But yeah,
Verstappen's still out there and it's on 85. We've still got 20 minutes to go. He might hit the ton in this morning session.
oh yeah, I keep missing Verstappen. So Verstappen has done 30 more than Leclerc.
Yeah. Russell's done 66. He's moved up to 6th place, by the way. Oh, that's all sixes. Hurry up, George. Get a lap in. 118, 168. So.
But I think you're still right. We can't read too much into it because Red Bull might have turned up. Like, this is our setup for doing our morning first bit of testing. Just go out there and do some laps. Whereas Ferrari might be do some laps, come back in, change a few things, go out, do some more laps, change a few things. Just because Ferrari have done 30 less laps than Red Bull doesn't mean they're having a worse time of it. Just probably on a different program, of which we have no idea what they're doing.
No. I think the best way to look at it as well is to just show you how much you can read into these times. Russell is 6th on an 18-1. Williams have not found 4 odd seconds over the winter to put him a 10th clear of Leclerc in a Ferrari. And Ferrari aren't that bad. They're not that bad with things. So yeah. I think, like I said earlier, the laps are the key thing here. But then again, like you've said, Stuart, that's a variable because it might just be set up. That might be what they're doing. This afternoon, they might only do 25 laps.
Yeah. I mean, I would expect them to do a decent amount. I think it's when you've got these sort of doing, 18, 20 laps like Haas and Racing Point did last year. That usually, they didn't have a very good go of things. Especially with only 6 days testing as well, I think you want to see tyres on track as much as possible.
I suppose that's another good. Yeah, actually, we talked about an hour ago, didn't we? About why we're getting so many laps. Maybe we're getting so many laps this morning because they've lost 2 days.
Yeah.
They've got to put the laps in. They've got to make that up somewhere, haven't they? So, as my TV wants to go in standby, no, how dare you? Nicholas Cowie, by the way, just said in chat, if you want a tricky question to start to round off the stream with, who's the most underrated world champion? I feel like I've answered that before. I probably have, but yeah. I think Rosberg's quite underrated.
I was thinking about Rosberg. I was going to ask.
I don't know if he's the most, but I think he is underrated because, reliability and blah, 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 blah. He did beat Lewis Hamilton to a world championship. Whether it was because of reliability or not, it doesn't matter the reasons. He did. So I think that's Freeze014 saying both of the Rosbergs.
Ooh.
Good shout.
I don't know
Anthony
enough
says
about
Jody
to say that.
Scheckter. Jonty saying Scheckter. Cliff says Jacques Villeneuve.
I keep thinking of overrated ones. I think that's at the over. What do you? Okay, this is completely derailed the question. What do you think of Jacques Villeneuve? Because he sort of won that championship, and then we sort of never saw good Jacques Villeneuve again. Might be a bit harsh.
I watched the 97 review DVD. I still have DVDs. I'm buying them individually as I can afford to. Because I love the 90s. But yeah, not in every way, not just in Formula One. But,
you can watch them all on F1 TV, right?
Yeah, but that means I like to have things on the TV, and I haven't got a casty thing or whatever the kids are calling them. And
I just have a very long wire.
I could get a wire.
Yay.
It's like, actually, random stuff. Right, I know wireless doesn't mean wireless, but I did laugh the other day because my other half bought a wireless charger for an iPhone and an Apple Watch and had to plug 3 wires into it. And I was like, that's not wireless, is it? It's like, well, no, you plug it in, you have to have a power source. It's like, it's not wireless. You can't get a wireless charger, just plug your wire in. Does it? Anyway, okay, thank you. Okay, boomer. Yeah, that was very boomer. I do apologise. Anyway, watch the 97 season back. I didn't realise, and you can call this Schumacher bias if you like, but I didn't realise how lucky he got in 1997. Or I did, but not until I watched it back. So he deserved the title because at the end of the season, he'd made the fewest mistakes. He picked up the most points. He didn't deliberately try and run somebody off the track.
It all helps.
Michael. But I do look at things. He was very lucky in that Schumacher made those mistakes and Ferrari made mistakes. He was very lucky in other aspects of the season, but I'm just thinking now, as I'm making my point, that's not a fair thing to say because he was also very unlucky. there were incidents where he was getting done for speeding under yellow flags and getting, thrown out of race results, but others were doing the same thing and getting away with it.
Yeah.
So it's quite, when you look at the stats, you could argue that Villeneuve was lucky to win his title. But if I'm going to sit here and say that Rosberg is underrated because whether you like it or not, he beat Lewis Hamilton, kind of got to say the same about Villeneuve in a way, because he beat Michael Schumacher. Whatever the circumstances, he beat him, and Schumacher is regarded as one of the greatest, if not the greatest of all time. I don't like him. I'll be honest. I don't like Villeneuve. I don't think if he ever listened to one of these, he'd lose any sleep over that. I don't think he cares who likes him. I'm not a fan. But can I say he's underrated? I mean, I think Häkkönen's an underrated world champion.
Agreed.
I really do. And he's a bit like Villeneuve. He beat Schumacher across, well, one season really. Well, you can't really count 99, but he still beat him in 98. Schumacher probably the best driver on the grid at the time. It's really hard to... I can't really sort of how I feel about Villeneuve without just waffling stats and things like that, but I don't like him. I think he is underrated because he beat one of the best of all time to a title, but he also got lucky as well as unlucky. But I was watching that 97 season back. I loved that season. Even though Schumacher wasn't the champion, I love it. And massive shout out. I think it was a year before you started watching, wasn't it, Stuart? 97.
It was, but I'm quite familiar with it because I bought the F1 video game on the N64, which is based around the 97 season.
Yes.
And it's full of like lots of scenarios to sort of take part in.
Did you use the cheat to go through the volcano? The volcano track?
Oh my God, yes. With the gold car.
Yeah. I love that. That was ace. When, for some reason, Jacques Villeneuve was called Driver Williams.
Yeah, because he refused to license his name out.
Yeah.
Good times.
That was so good.
Yeah,
that was such a good game.
You Codemasters F1 people don't know what it was like back.
I'm on a nostalgia trip now. Can you remember the advert for the 98 game for the N64?
No.
It's the one where they finally introduced replays, and it's just a pair of guys on like the sofa playing N64 going, "Let's see that again. Let's see that again." Oh, the things are, don't ask me what I had for tea last night. I couldn't tell you, but I'll tell you anything from 97, 98. Great season 97. And I was just going to say, shout out to Michael Schumacher's Monaco drive that year. He was 22, I forgot, he was 22 seconds clear of the second place driver in 5 laps.
Oh, yeah.
That's epic. Yeah. That's wet weather driving. And Rubens Barrichello getting second for Stewart as well in their first season. Boom.
I loved Stewart. They only lasted like 3 years, but they had a real good time of it. They won a race. Because
Ford bought them out, didn't they? Made them Jaguar, and then whatever became of them, they went on to become Red Bull, of course. Yeah, wow. Mm-hmm. So they're here in spirit.
Yeah. Do you think we'll see Ford come back again? Are they gone? Because when they left for Jaguar, they were like, "We are gone."
I'd like to, but then I'd like to see other manufacturers in F1. It's one of the things that, I like Formula E as well, but as a major F1 fan, it's the one thing I'm jealous of about FE. I'd love to have Audi, Porsche, Mercedes, BMW in Formula 1. I know Mercedes are, but you know what I mean. I think that'd be amazing to have all of them, like the proper Bundesliga feel. I think that'd be incredible. But I'd like to see Ford back. Even if they just come back with Cosworth, Stuart, and provide an engine.
Yeah, Paul Cosworth.
That name would be amazing. Don't forget to drop a like on the stream, peeps, as well, before we round off today. That'd be massively appreciated. And if you do donate anything now, I'll try and read it out, but you might want to wait to the afternoon if you're going to do that, so I can read it out then. So, but I will be live again from 1:30, and Dan will be joining us when he's legged it home from uni. Whatever time that is, about 2ish, I think. So yeah.
Well, is Grosjean on track this afternoon? Because they want to be back for that.
No, he's not on track this afternoon. So that's why there's no red flags.
Hey.
There you go.
Oh, God.
I think we're going to the end of the stream now. You can tell we're starting to talk about adverts and stuff. So let's read a couple of questions out or something.
Yeah.
before I start getting on to stories about my nan. Afternoon session is 1 o'clock UK time till 5. So we're live 1:30 till 5, or me and Dan will be. I don't go live for the first half hour, because, especially this morning, because a lot of it's just reconnaissance laps, and I like to have something to talk about when we get back rather than trying to fill half an hour.
Yeah.
Bradley wants to know what's wrong with DVDs. I think they're just outdated now, apparently. Apparently, somebody says to me that nobody owns DVDs. I was like, you know bookcases? My bookcase is just full of DVDs. There's no books on there. I've also about the game now. We've set people off on adverts. Talk about the Pizza Hut advert with Damon Hill.
I love that advert.
Murray Walker.
He spun his pizza through 180 degrees.
Sod it. I was watching Harry Enfield and Chums the other week, and David Hill was in an episode and I didn't realise.
Oh wow, that's amazing.
Yeah, it was the guy who was like, and I was like, "Oi, Hill, no!" It was that guy. It was actually quite funny. I've also been watching. I am looking for questions, by the way, chat. Don't worry, I'm just filling. But I have also been watching all the Alan Partridges back as well. I know he's a character, but he's an awful man. He's absolutely terrible.
Who is, sorry?
Alan Partridge.
Oh,
the character, not Steve Coogan. He's brilliant, but yeah. Do you have any updates on Vettel's situation, says Franz, or asks Franz? I don't. No, I've not seen anything from Ferrari. I've got Twitter open. I'm going to have a double check now, though, while I'm thinking about it. But he was poorly this morning. Natalie Pinkham reckons it was because it's cold. He didn't want to be out in the cold. But nothing. Just showing off the helmets on Twitter at the moment. I'll try and get some pictures of those later if I remember. But no. Nothing. Just a bit poorly this morning. It comes for all of us, doesn't it, this time of year? So hopefully he's okay. I'd imagine, I think it's still Leclerc this afternoon, so I'm assuming he'll be in the car tomorrow. They'll just reverse their usual schedule. So, but the latest from Italy is that Ferrari have offered him a contract, but like I said earlier, take that with a pinch of salt. Good question from Daniel Weston, actually. I've never even thought about that. We all talk about teams this time of year, Stuart, but what do the drivers get out of testing? Other than, it's, I guess, just experience in the car, getting used to the car.
Yeah. I think it's fair to say they get less out of it than the teams do, but they do get familiar with where the car is at, though obviously it's not going to be a massive difference from last year. But yeah, they just, again, it's good. They haven't really driven these cars in anger for a few months. It's good to get the practice in, get the feel for it, remember how to drive. I joke, but getting the muscle memory back on track is a really useful thing to do. Thank God they've got the simulators. This year, much for muchness, much more biased towards the teams. Next year, I think we're going to see, obviously drivers having to understand what is essentially an entirely new type of Formula One car. But yeah, I think it's just practice, and also practice with working with their engineers, giving feedback. That relation, a very important thing. And also, actually, we're not having much of it this year. But if you're a new driver to a team, this is your first opportunity to sort of have a proper on-track relationship with your engineer and with your sort of engineering team.
Max just pointing out in chat, Sky have gone 4 hours without an advert. I didn't even notice.
They had adverts last year, didn't they?
Yeah.
I swear they did.
They did. So they're showing more and not doing adverts. That's great.
Fascinating, though, because they,
Matthew Underwood, are there any rule changes for this year? The only major, in terms of the car design, I think it is just the shark fin needs to be a bit bigger to get the driver number on. Or it's been allowed to be bigger to allow the driver number to be bigger. But I don't know if there's any major regulation changes at all this year. There's a couple of things. If you go to FIA.com and you're really bored and you're really sad like me, and have a look at their regulations of 2021, there's some stuff highlighted in pink that's changed, but a lot of it is behind the scenes stuff.
It's nothing major, is it?
Yeah.
I'm looking, if they were going to do this shark fin rule, I feel like maybe they should have designated a spot that was, this is the mandatory driver number place or something, because the numbers are still overlapping over the body of the car.
Yeah.
They're not. I don't know. Maybe it's I quite like sharp things anyway. I think they're quite attractive as long as they're not those humongous billboards that we had in sort of 2009. I think they're quite cool. But the numbers are still not exactly fitting on them properly.
Rico, sorry, chat wants the full shark fin back. I like the shark fin. I didn't realise it was quite a controversial opinion until the other day, but I do actually really like the shark fin.
Especially when it's quite sharky. If it cuts back in. I think when they first came out, they were just like these massive rectangles that took up all of that space of the car, and they were quite cool, but not very attractive.
Sainz just seemed to slow there very suddenly. I don't know if he was gearing up for a lap or on an in lap, but he just seemed to really slow on the approach to turn 5.
Yeah, I'm watching it going quite slowly now.
But it's cut away to K-Mag. Weird. I'll do a quick run through the tyres now, then I'll do them again at the end of the stream. Bottas fastest, 1:17.3, 76 laps. Loads of laps today. Perez, 1:17.3, 58 laps. Verstappen, 1:17.7, 92 laps. He's in the pits, though, so he's not going to get through the 100 this morning, but he will do this afternoon, I'd have thought. Unless something, knock on wood, I hope it doesn't, goes horribly wrong for Red Bull. Sainz, 18.0, 64 laps. Ocon, 18.0 as well. 3,000 slower than Sainz on 58 laps. George Russell, 18.1 on 74 laps. Leclerc, 18.2, 64 laps. Kubica, 18.3, 55. And then Magnussen, 18.4, 51 laps. And then you got Kvyat on an 18.6 on 52 laps. So there we go.
Really solid first session of testing.
Well, the worst is Magnussen on 51 at the moment, which is
a decent amount of laps.
Yeah.
I'm laughing at this tube of toothpaste that Kelly's tweeted us. I don't know if you see. It looks just like the Williams.
Oh, the toothpaste thing, yeah.
Sorry, I just noticed it. Oh, that's K-Mag off. I've just caught up with that. Just touched the escape road.
Was that a spin?
I think he lost the back end through turn 9, which is the fast right-hander onto the back straight, and caught it on the escape road.
That could have been a hefty crash. So was it
Brendan
Hartley a couple of years ago?
Yeah.
Massive one up there.
For everyone else, that's when you want to crash, but for Haas, you definitely don't want to crash just before the lunch break.
No.
So 3 minutes left. It looks like we're going to have completely uninterrupted running. I don't think I've ever seen that before.
Magnussen did his best to stop that. He did try, bless him. Thanks, K-Mag. But I 2 red flags, like you say, morning session last year this time. So that's.
But this is this is not your 1990s. 2000s F1 when you could just burn through chassis and cars willy-nilly through testing season. These cars are now built to last. They're much, much more bulletproof than they used to be, because they have to be. I think I remember when they first introduced like one engine per race weekend, there was all this worry that we'd suddenly have all this massive unreliability. We were exploding in the race. But they built the engines so they would last. And actually reliability went up, and it continues to go up the more you restrict them. It's weird.
I was just going to say, you've got a situation back in day where they'd use 3 engines a weekend. Now they've got to use 3 a season.
So they have to be, like, obviously, I don't think hardly anyone manages to use... No, actually, some people do, but there's a lot of people who don't manage to use all of their allocated moments. But we are in uncharted territory, really. This is pretty exciting to nerds like me. I've just noticed something that I'm actually, again, but because the AlphaTauri logo is from the Red Bull logo, it's distinguishable on the timing screens.
Oh, I missed that. Yeah, I never even. Yeah,
because sometimes they put a little tiny logo next to the drivers on the billboard. Yeah, the AlphaTauri looks a bit like an infinity symbol, so you can't mistake it anymore.
Do you know what? Actually, look, talking logos there, looking at that, the Racing Point one. You know, if you played like an F1 manager game and you had to create a team logo and you couldn't have anything that was licensed, so it would just be the colours. That's what the Racing Point logo looks like.
It is naff, isn't it? It's a naff name,
awful.
a naff logo. Next year, we're going to get the wings of Aston Martin.
I think they're wrapping up the morning session with a minute to go. We're getting a load of really over-the-top shaky highlights. Look, I'm live for all of it, so I'm no person to criticise, but it's testing, guys. Calm down. So, look at this fence. Yeah, they've wrapped it up with a minute to go. Oh, I think the flag's just gone. Well.
There we go. Oh,
screw you, Sky, costing me 10 seconds of my footage. How dare you? I want a refund. Not really, no. Should we do it? I'll do a quick run through the order then, again, for what it's worth, and then we'll wrap it up because I'll be back in about an hour and a half. Bottas, fastest in that morning session, 1:17.313, 80 laps on the board. He was on a medium compound of tyre, the C3 probably. Perez, a 1:17.3 as well, 58 laps this morning, so good running for him, better than last year. Max Verstappen doing the most though, 92 laps, 17.7. Carlos Sainz an 18 flat, 64 laps for him, 3 more than Esteban Ocon, who was 3/1000 slower, so a lot of threes there, 18.0 for Ocon. George Russell, check that out, 1:18.1, 74 laps for Williams, 74 laps more than they got this point last year. Yeah. Charles Leclerc, 1:18.2, 64 laps for him in that Ferrari. So Ferrari have got the sandbags on at the minute. Robert Kubica, he was in this morning. He'll be out this afternoon. I think Raikkonen's in for him. 18.3, 59 laps. And then Magnussen, 18.4, 54 laps. Same number of laps as Kvyat. And actually more or less the same time. Also an 18.4 for Kvyat. And this afternoon we got Stroll, Ricciardo, Raikkonen, Hamilton, and Latifi, I think. Yes, this afternoon. So a bit of a change up. But yeah, I think we'll leave it there, Stuart. I'm going to go get some very quickly to eat.
Yeah, me too.
I think it's a good idea.
Good first session. I keep banging on about it, but I'm incredible. Like lots and lots of laps on the board, no red flags, everybody looking healthy. Obviously, could glean no information other than that. But lovely to see the cars back on track. Thanks for having me.
No, thank you for coming on. It's been fun. It's been nice to just waffle. I enjoyed these last year. I'm going to enjoy them even more this year because I'm really pressure off now that I've done them before. So yeah, we can have a bit of fun. But yeah, it's been a pleasure chatting to you, and I think
I'll see you next week.
Yeah,
I'll be doing the mornings with you next week.
Yeah, you are. Yeah, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday next week. So thank you very much, Stuart. And I'm sure I'll talk to you. Well, I'll say it now. If I don't talk to you before, I'll talk to you Saturday. But streaming wise, next Wednesday.
Yes, we are recording something on Saturday.
Wink, wink, push nudge.
Wait. All right, I will. Talk to you soon. Have a good lunch and a good afternoon session with Dan.
Lovely, awesome stuff. Thank you again, and I'll talk to you soon.
Cheers. See you later.
Bye. Yep, thank you very much to Stuart. Thank you to you guys as well for tuning in. I'm just going to disappear now for this morning stream. Be back at 1:30, so an hour and a half-ish from now for the afternoon session with Dan from F1/E Reviews. Don't forget to drop a like on the stream before you disappear and to subscribe if you're new. We're on our way towards 100k, so let's see if we can do that before the end of the season, to be honest. I'm not really bothered. Thank you everyone for your contributions as well. We'll do some reading of comments and whatnot this afternoon too. So I'll leave it there. Go get something to eat, and I will catch you all in about an hour and a half. Bye-bye.